All right, you're all set. Go ahead.
Thank you. Before I open the hearing for the Barnstable Conservation Commission, I would like to ask Angela to do a roll call for the quorum purpose.
Abedili.
Present.
Foster.
Present.
Hearn.
Present.
Kashulik. I'll come back to him.
Not here.
Lee.
Present?
Sampu.
Present.
And Tangney, present. We have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Oh, staff? Did you call Ed?
Oh, I'm sorry. Administrator Ed Hoops.
Present.
Staff member Kim Kavanaugh.
Present.
Everybody's here except for Jeff, and I'll look for him if he enters late.
Thank you. As Angela was mentioning, congratulations. Ed is the official conservation administrator.
Wow. Congratulations, Ed.
Thank you. Good luck, Ed.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm afraid I'll need it.
Acting under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and Chapter 237 of the Code of Town of Barnstable, the Barnstable Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, March 25th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. for the applications of Robert Arneson, 166 Peppercoin LLC, Borg Partners LLC, Roger and Marion Builders on behalf of Sarah Elder, Oyster Harbor Club, Inc., Alexia Fix, Trustees 333, Stewart Road Realty Trust, 160 Peppercoin LLC, Denont Maryborough. The hearing is being recorded and broadcast on the Town of Barnstable's Government's Access Channel. The plans and application are on file and may be reviewed by scheduled appointments by sending email requests to @hoops at 230 South Street, Hyannis. In accordance with the Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 20, please let the chair know if anyone is recording this meeting. Hearing none, this evening's hearing agenda is posted on the town's website. On the agenda, next each application is the amount owed to the Town of Barnstable for the cost of advertisement. Please send your checks to the Conservation Division at 230 South Street before the hearing. Remote participations. The Conservation Commission public hearing will be held by remote participation as a result of an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed by the governor on March 29, 2023, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. Remote public access to this hearing shall be provided in the following manner. 1, the hearing will be televised by Xfinity Channel 8 or High Definition Channel 1072. It may also be accessed via Town of Barnstable's Government's Access Channel. 2, the real-time public comment can be addressed to the Conservation Commission utilizing the Zoom link X4995624084 or use the toll-free phone number 888-475-4499 as shown on the agenda. 3rd, the public can also email their comments to ed.hoops@town.barnstable.ma.us at least 8 hours prior to the hearing. We have a long agenda tonight. Please keep your comments within our Wetlands Protection Act jurisdictions. I think we're going into let me go into the old and new business. Since I mentioned about the current regulation as far as the remote participations, it will be expired by the end of March. And last week, the State House and the State Senate has approved it, and the bill is in front of the governor for the signing. I'm waiting for that. And we also need the blessing from the town manager. If everything goes well, then we would have to, we can talk about, the future for it. But because of the time that we need to do this for April 1st, I would try to see whether we can do the approval for the Zoom meeting on the April 1st, and then we have a discussions on April 1st for the future forwarding. How's that sound? Any question for me? John, unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea. But having been through this a number of times, I'd just like to make a comment because I've thought a lot about this and in my own thinking about the question that we'll discuss on the April 1st meeting, I assume. And that is, I think it's really important to ask the public and the consultants, the people that appear before us, for their input. I think that's a very valuable thing that we could all use to hear what they think about this, whether it's Zoom or in person or, as Pete Sampu once suggested, maybe a hybrid combination. The other thing I think is important is to hear from staff. They deal with this thing 5 or 6 days a week, Ed, and you and Kate and Kim and everybody I think would be valuable to me to get your input. And then, of course, what each commissioner's thoughts were. So those are just my kind of requests for the April 1st meeting when we do discuss this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, John. One thing I just want to clarify, when John mentioned hybrid, that means either in person or remote. We don't have the in person and remote at the same time.
Well, actually, Tom, I was kind of going back to something Peter said a year ago when we were discussing this. He at that time made a suggestion that maybe for some part of the year it's in person, some part of the year it's Zoom. I mean,
correct.
That's kind of what I was thinking in case
right.
people want to bring that up again.
Right. That's. I just want to clarify. It's not a hybrid. A hybrid, in the sense for us, is either in person or in remote.
Thank you. Yeah, you're right. Thank you.
Okay. Any commissioner want to make any comment before I try to take a vote? Seeing none, could I have a motion to approve our April 1st meeting to be a Zoom meeting if the governor signed the extensions act, and then the town manager allow us to do the remote meeting? And if this is not happening, then April 1st will be in-person meeting. But
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Hearn.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Sampu.
Abstain.
And Tangney, aye. And I don't see if Jeff is on yet. Okay, we're good.
Okay.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We have 4 LDAs tonight.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I'm going to remove myself from the meeting.
Okay.
Thank
Take care. Yes. Thank you. Robert Anson's addition of rinse stations, fire pit, pergola, expand an existing stone terrace, and 2,000 square feet of native planting at 71 Sachem Drive, Sandyville, as shown on Assessors Map 209, parcel 026. Bill?
Yes, here.
Go ahead.
Okay, hello?
Yep.
Okay. Hi, my name's William Cawley of Cawley Site Services. I'm representing Rob and Marcy Aronson of 71 Sachem Drive. Also with me is Elaine Johnson, the landscape designer, and Tim Acton, the landscape contractor. The proposed work involves adding a rinse station, fire pit, pergola, expanding the existing stone terrace to a porcelain paver terrace, along with a 4-foot wide grass pathway to the pond. The proposed terrace is being designed to capture all the water runoff and to be channeled into a dry well, surrounded by 2 feet of stone, along with a rinse station located on the terrace. All construction work will be limited between the 50 and 100-foot buffer zones that presently is in the location of the stone terrace and the Cape Cod lawn. The work is within the NHESP zone 253, which we have submitted for a determination, which we will receive by April 9th. Also, we have provided over 2,000 square feet of available planting areas for native plants in the 50-foot buffer area that presently has little or no understory. we have provided, I'm looking, the work limit for the construction area with the silt fence and hay bales. And also down by the pond, we've provided the work limit for any planting, so no silts or debris will go into the pond. So it is my belief we should, under the the Mass Wetland Regulation 310 CMR 10.02 2B1 should apply to this project, because we believe we're actually reducing the runoff on the project and actually improving the property, because as it is, there are a lot of open areas in that 50-foot buffer area, which we've proposed 2,000 square feet of for native plants.
Are you all set?
Yes.
Yeah, let me get this.
Thank you. Any question from the commissioner? Angela?
Yes, I just wanted to note that this is a wonderful NOI, and I actually liked the planting and I liked everything on it. But I'm not understanding how this fits under an RDA, because you are in the jurisdiction of things that we would need to have some control over. And the plantings and the management plan are not done through an RDA. So I don't see that this would be a negative determination. I would see this as a positive determination. But I'd like to hear from the other commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Bill?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I looked at this and my first reaction was that, well, heck, this would be a slam dunk NOI. I mean, I would approve this as a permit. And if it had a permit, you would have the enforcement for the actual mitigation. And if we do an RDA, we are basically saying that it doesn't come under the Wetlands Protection Act, and therefore no permit, go on your way. And I feel like that, there is hardscape being increased in the 50 to 100-foot buffer, and then there's lots of mitigation for it. So I don't understand why it was an RDA and it wasn't what would probably be an incredibly permissible NOI with a permit.
Maybe Ed could address that, Bill.
What's that?
Maybe Ed could address that. Ed.
Yeah, so just to, I have had met with the engineer and landscape architect back in October. The original project, as it was originally proposed, was something smaller than this. When they presented the plan for an RDA just a couple weeks ago, I had spoken to them at the time and said that I thought this was an awful lot, but they chose to try and move forward with it. I have warned them that there could be a positive decision. I believe they're aware of that and probably willing to go forward with the notice of intent, but I don't want to speak for them, but that's the reason why it's here. It became bigger than what was originally billed. So
Thank you, Ed. And I would agree, because normally under the RDA, we have a very simple filing for a few items and not related to any mitigation planning and so forth. So I think this application seems to be fit for the NOI, so that we have some kind of conditions for these projects. Any other questions or comment from the commissioner? John?
Yeah, that hearing what's been said, and I would agree with Bill and Angela on that in Utah, the applicant has an opportunity to withdraw this instead of getting a positive determination and then deciding to file an NOI, or we could take a vote and deny it with a positive.
Right.
Okay.
Any other question from the commissioner? Let me go to the public first. Channel 18, any public comment on this? Sarah? Sarah, Channel 18?
She may be very busy trying to get people in, Tom. I don't know.
Don't
This
see
is-
anybody with their hands raised.
I did not see anyone raised.
We got bitten over here,
Huh?
right there.
What, behind you?
Yeah, Grant, go ahead, speak.
I have just questions because we're not proposing any hardscape in the 50-foot buffer area. We're just going to put a grass pathway down there. And we're not really mitigating per se, is we're taking 2,000 square feet of open area already and providing native plants in that area. So my belief is we're improving that 50-foot buffer. I don't know if Elaine Johnson wants to put in any input on this or.
Well, yeah, I have come up with some ideas, of course, in as much as we didn't have to provide a mitigation plan per se, because we're in the RDA category at this point in time. I have done a plan to utilize native plants with vertical diversity, covering a large area of the 50-foot to the edge of the pond there on Long Pond on Satcham Drive, which is a vast improvement to the property, both from an important native functional standpoint, pollination, habitat for birds, and so on, as well as aesthetically improving the property enormously, because right now there's pretty much, except for some existing trees, which you see on Bill's plan, is pretty open in many areas. So a vertical diverse native planting with shrubs, ground cover, and some well-placed small native trees, Amealcare. I see precedence for Tupelo, which would be a larger tree in one particular area. So I've got viburnum, two types of viburnum, clethra, fothergelia, aronia, Ilex glabra, Comptonia, so on and so forth, and some ground cover with bearberry.
No, I understand that. We are not saying that your plan is not good. I'm saying that, your plan
Right.
is good, but
Yeah.
a lot of the
Yeah.
things that you put it in under the RDA applications.
Right.
And normally, we may have, put a fireplace here, a wind station here, something simple, 2 or 3 things. But in this plan, you have so much stuff in there that, under the NOI, we have some kind of chance to put some condition or something in there. But on the RDA, you don't have any option at all. And this is a huge, complex project for you guys. So I don't feel comfortable of approving this as a negative determination. That's where you're coming. We are not saying that your plan is not good. All I'm saying is that your plan is asking a lot of stuff under the NOI. That's all.
Excuse me, Tom. Angela, I believe Jeff has joined the commission.
Thank you. I got him. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me try this. Bill, do you want to withdraw or do you want to take a vote from the commissioner?
I believe if we withdraw, we'll just go to a notice of intent then?
Yeah.
I believe that it sounds like that's the way to go then.
Okay.
Lane, what's your opinion?
Well, absolutely.
Okay.
I'd like to go forward with this project, and
So-
our clients, I'm sure, feel strongly for that as well. I see that Marcy is here, but we do want permission to develop this project in the backyard at the Aaronsons and Marcy Coppleton's home. So I'll take advice from the board, of course, and you, Bill, as the engineer, the best way to move the project forward so that we can actually build it.
It'd probably be best if I could suggest to withdraw it and not have a determination on the record. Just withdraw it
Okay.
and file an NOI.
Withdraw
I
without,
would recommend.
yeah,
Yeah, I would too.
okay,
Okay, that's what we'll do then.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
The next RDA
Thank
is
you.
the next RDA is 166 Peppercoin LLC, native planting, removal of existing driveway and portion of existing wall, installation of gravel driveways, installation of stone steps, and perimeter fencing at 166 Peppercoin, contoured as shown on the assessors map 004, parcel 013. Lauren?
Hello, I'm Lauren Cronin with Gregory Lombardi Design, the landscape architects. This is one of 3 agenda items tonight. There are 3 adjacent properties owned by the same owners. So we'll talk about this one and then you'll hear more from me later this evening. So this one we've filed as an RDA because we believe the proposed activities meet their exemption because they're considered minor activities under the 310 CMR 10.02. So as you read in the description, there's the existing site has been cleared for a driveway and residence under the previous order of conditions. So the proposal on the table now is to revegetate that cleared zone primarily. There's also a gravel driveway that was proposed to go through the middle of the lot within the flood zone, kind of in the existing meadow area. And there's this few stone steps that are up along the property line, also in the flood zone, and then revegetating everything that's being cleared with native plant material.
Thank you. Thank you. Any question from the commissioner? Bill?
Yeah, I visited all 3 of the sites, and it's an interesting place, and I have like no problem with this being a negative determination. But I'm wondering, at the end of the 2 undeveloped properties, there are all of these, I want to call them irrigation things on poles that are like, 5-6 feet. Looks like an old drive-in movie kind of a thing. And I'm wondering, what's that about?
That is the temporary irrigation for that meadow establishment. So that meadow area was seeded last fall as part of the closeout of the previous order of conditions to stabilize that whole cleared area. So the contractor has assured me that it is in fact temporary and it will all come out this fall once that meadow has established.
It's quite a irrigation system you got up.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other question from the commissioner? Seeing none. Channel 18, any public comment on this? Channel 18. I think Sarah may be busy. Let me try this. Could I have a motion to approve this application as a negative determination?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili,
Aye.
Hearn,
Aye,
Koshulik,
you're on mute, Jeffrey.
I'll go back. Lee,
Aye.
Sampu,
Aye.
and Tagney, aye. Jeff, can you hear me?
Aye.
Got it. Thank
Got
you.
it.
It's unanimous,
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Good luck.
Thank you.
The third RDA of the evening is Bog Partners LLC, change of crops in 9.25 to 9.5 acres of existing bogs from cranberries to wetland trees at 1246 Bums River Road, Centerville, as shown on the assessors map 188 parcel 045 and 0 Mary Ann Terrace. Centerville, as shown on the assessors map 188 parcel 012. Ollie?
Good evening, Arlene Wilson, AM Wilson Associates, here for Bog Partners LLC. I'll share my screen if that's all right.
Yep.
Okay. So I think most of you, except for Jeff, are familiar with this job. These are the former Jenkins Cranberry Bogs on Bumps River Road. And what the owner would like to do is to change the crop for about 2/3 of the cranberry bogs from cranberries, which, as we all know, are not making much of a profit these days for people, to a wetland tree nursery. In order to do that, we do not need to change any of the topography, any of the drainage ditches, or any of the old irrigation system. This site has an irrigation pond, which you can see on the left-hand side, colored blue, and a pump house, which pumps the water through the irrigation system. There are access points for machinery, which are shown with a red arrow. Those are places where there are existing culverts in the ditch system. Part of this may be to maintain some of those culverts if they're necessary. They are corrugated PVC, not concrete. So they're relatively easy to replace when and if that's necessary. The trees that will go in will have a small stem diameter, 1.5 inches probably. They will grow to close to maturity, something like 3 to 3.5 inches, and be sold commercially. There were a number of questions that came up in comment letters to the commission. Several of those letters questions the title of this property. There is clear title in Bog Partners LLC. There is a neighborhood group that actually filed suit against the town, claiming that the town had not proceeded with the proper hearings when the property was sold. It was under agricultural exemption and tax status previously. To lift that tax status, there is a procedure laid out at law. That court case had been going on for several years. It was last week, I believe, the plaintiffs, that is the neighbor group, withdrew. And the case has been closed out. The lawyers for Bog Partners and I think the town have come to the understanding that title is clear in Bog Partners. There has also been raised issues about the changes in crop. The agricultural definition and regulations in the Wetlands Protection Act are not the clearest in the world. I may be the only one here who's old enough to remember when they were written. They were the subject of a great deal of review and comment. And like any other thing that's written by committee, it came out like a camel. But it is clear under section C1F that as long as the area is in agriculture, And in agriculture includes allowing the land to remain fallow, that is essentially unworked, for up to 5 years. You can, in fact, change the crop. The owner here has the intent not only to continue raising crops agriculturally, but to sell them and to sell those trees at a profit with luck. And you have a statement from him in your record to that effect. There was also a question about the ability to convert from forestry, that is silviculture, to another crop. It is true that that does not have an exemption under the Wetlands Protection Act, but that's not what we're doing here. We're going from a non-silviculture to a silviculture production, and that is allowable. And I think that's pretty much answers the questions that people have. There's also a piece of correspondence that I provided to Ed today with the former owner, confirming that the last time the cranberries were cropped here was in the fall of 2020. And so we are within the 5-year window. And we have done maintenance on the bogs the last couple of years. They've been clearing the weeds from the ditches and the weeds from the bog surface, including some Phragmites. And as you all know, they've also fenced in about half of the distance around the bog. So with that, I would be happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Arlene. A couple of things I just want to mention. Number one, we have received 7 comment letters from the abutter regarding to these projects. They are all in the file. And secondly, as far as the questions related to the Chapter 61A, which is Arlene was mentioning about the title, that is not within our wetlands jurisdiction. So we don't have any jurisdiction to make any determination on that. That's outside of our thing. And thirdly, this application is RDA, and under the state law, we have a 21 days rule to make a determination to decide whether it's going to be a positive or negative determination. We cannot take any continuance with this type of applications. With that, I just want to go to Ed first. Ed spent a lot of time looking at these applications. Ed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I did spend a rather lengthy time going through all of the agriculture definitions and reviewing the 310 CMR appropriate passages, and also reviewing the wetland farming and wetland guidance document from DEP. Again, the project is a change of commodity, which comes down to the very basic question of changing commodity under 10.04 Agriculture C1F. It does allow for a change in commodity to occur. It is going, again, as Arlene said, from cranberries to trees in a silvicultural application. So, I mean, in that respect, that is an allowable movement of commodity. I believe that they are hitting all of the major points that have to be attained in order for them to achieve and prove the change in commodity. So I believe at this point a negative determination would be applicable under this circumstance. Again, we have to be very careful, and we would caution the applicant to make sure that they continue to maintain no change to drainage, no change in topography, no filling of the cranberry bog itself, or any alteration or filling of the BBW around the bog, in order to maintain and stay within the letter of the agricultural exemption. If I may, I did have a couple questions for Arlene, if she could just answer. I know there's about maybe 2/3, 3/4 of the bog are actually going to be in the silvicultural application as proposed. What are you going to be doing with the rest of what's happening to the cranberry portion of the bog that's staying cranberries?
For now, they're going to continue to do periodic maintenance, weeding, ditch cleaning, that kind of thing. And they're looking at whether to convert that to some other kind of woody wetland plant for nursery purposes, but that decision has not been made yet.
And again, in the hydrology, you're not planning on changing hydrology of the bog itself?
Absolutely not.
Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you, Ed. Any question from the commissioner? Bill?
Well, I'm going to have to disagree with Ed, and I will provide my reasons at some length here. This RDA is requesting our commission to determine whether a proposed change of crop is consistent with farming practices meriting an agricultural exemption. The crop changes from cranberries to forest trees. And it is indeed a fairly complex question requiring an understanding of the agricultural exemptions under the Wetlands Protection Act. And I did read it at length, 310 CMR, section 10.04 under agriculture, which is what their guidelines, their 132-page guideline, ask you to look at. And I've looked at that guideline and spent a lot of time with it. And I think that the 132-page document, Farming in Wetland Resource Areas, was prepared by the DEP in collaboration with the Cape Cod Cranberry Growers Association, the Farmland Advisory Committee, the Mass Farm Bureau Federation, New England Small Farm Institute, and a whole bunch of others. That document notes that there are 5 components of an agricultural exemption: the work or the activity, whether the work or activity is normal, maintenance activities that keep existing operations in good working order, recognition that improvement activities involve change, and the land must be in agricultural use. Those are the 5 components. And I would contend that 3 of these components are brought into question if you're going to be going from a cranberry to a timber context. The DEP Wetland Farm Guide says it is the activity which is exempt, not the land. And it says, quote, even though a piece of land is in agricultural use, a particular activity may not qualify for the exemption. And we can talk about that later, but it's the activity, not the land. It states that, and secondly, it states that the work or the activity must be considered normal. And it goes into explaining what are normal practices for a lot of farms. It goes in, blah, 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 dairies, this and whatnot. This attempt to retain an ag exemption for converting from a cranberry bog to a tree farm essentially in a wetland is not normal. It's not at all normal. It's unique and very likely precedent setting. The DEP Guide to Farming in Wetlands does address forestry operations. It states that, quote, commercial harvesting of timber in these areas, meaning wetlands, is not typical since most of these areas have low quality forest products, unquote. Indeed, red maple, which is one of the species suggested for this conversion, is probably one of the most common wetland tree species, on the Cape. The guide also says, quote, the soils in wetlands typically cannot support commercial timber harvesting equipment, unquote. It mentions that for harvesting trees in a wetland, an owner needs to comply with a forest cutting plan, which is reviewed and approved by DEM, Department of Environmental Management. On page 5-4 in that 132-page guideline, it says, quote, "It is not always possible to avoid crossing a resource area to access a timber stand," meaning crossing a wetland to get to the trees. "Heavy equipment can cause rutting and soil compaction, and the felling and dragging of trees can cause erosion and sedimentation. Although these impacts can be controlled with the use of BMPs, the forest cutting plan approved by DEM specified BMPs for protection of water quality in wetlands," unquote. This, and I should tell you that section 310 CMR 10.04 under Ag actually specifies that, if you're going to be, harvesting stuff, you got to do it when the ground is frozen or the place is dry. And around here, a frozen wetland is not a very common thing, and it's probably going to be less so in the future. This RDA proposal to convert to silviculture, which tree harvest, provides no consideration of the huge change in the likely environmental impacts of this conversion from cranberry bog to tree farming in a bog wetland. Those impacts would come from managing their growth, trimming, thinning, and whatnot, and especially the potentially catastrophic effects of the harvest of actual timber-sized trees in a wetland swamp. And I noticed that the idea was they're only like 3.5-inch trees. So we're really not talking about timbering for boards. It sounds more like growing trees for fireplaces or what have you. Lastly, the component of whether it would be in land, the third component that they talk about is the component of whether it would be land in agricultural use. The guideline, as well as 310 CMR 10.04 under the agriculture paragraphs, actually it's like 3.5 pages about the ag exemption there, states that the land must be used to produce or raise agricultural commodities, quote, for commercial purposes. That's quote unquote commercial purposes. And that, and this guide says that you have to make a profit. If you were to seriously attempt to develop quality oak boards from swamp oak, you'd need many decades to grow them. And you'd have to factor in the potential substantial limitations imposed in a forest cutting plan for harvest in a forested wetland. Even timber harvest, you'd need to have a forest cutting plan. And, they're going to be pretty limited. I don't have any sense that this plan is a commercial venture with a likelihood of making a profit in several decades. Let me just go on a little bit longer. On page 215 of that guide, of that 132-page wetlands guide by the DEP, is a table for determining jurisdiction. If you go to 215, if any of you just happen to have that in front of you, look at it. It says there are 13 rows on that table corresponding to 13 scenarios that vary according to 4 parameters. I strongly believe that this project would come under the third row from the top. The land is subject to protection under the Wetlands Protection Act. The land is in ag use, and the work is subject to regulation, but it is not normal maintenance or improvement. The project converting a cranberry bog to a commercial tree farm is extremely unusual and very probably unprecedented. It will likely result in impacts to water quality associated with operations, including harvesting meaningful amounts of timber in the distant future. And its likelihood of being a viable commercial venture yielding a reasonable profit is questionable at best. The issue of whether the impacts can be addressed by a forest cutting plan is basically moot because there isn't one. There's no forest present. They have no forest. They can't get a forest cutting plan. For these reasons, an NOI should be completed with a credible explanation as to why this project won't significantly affect downstream water supply, downstream aquatic habitat and fisheries resources, groundwater, and flood storage, which are, what we would deal with in an NOI. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Pete?
Tom,
What?
could I correct a misconception before we go down this rabbit hole any further? We are not proposing to raise timber for harvest as cut wood. We're going to sell live trees. This is a nursery bill. And live wetland trees are in demand because this commission and many others require mitigation in these areas, and people need these trees to be able to plant for mitigation purposes. So I agree with what you said. If we were going to do this to cut timber and sell cut timber, we would have to have an NOI, but that's not what we're going to do.
Even the effects, the conversion from a cranberry bog into raising trees that are, large trees, 3.5-inch diameter trees. I mean, it's not clear to me that there's a plan for a profit and that there would not be different impacts than what are normal for cranberry growing. I don't know that you've covered that base. That's how I feel.
The regulations allow for that kind of a conversion.
Yeah. Pete?
Okay, thank you for giving me the floor. I am sort of surprised that this is an RDA. Again, I respect Dr. Hearn's analysis based on science and extensive reading. I'd like to ask my fellow commissioners and the public that a bog, a wetland, unless you've got extraordinarily soft, big tires, if you're trying to bring a tree spade to remove a ball of soil for a 3 to 4 inch caliper tree, that's a lot of mass there because you're telling me it's a wetland. So now we've got not just dry soil, it's probably semi-waterlogged soil. That is a huge weight upon a bog environment. I'm certain you're going to get compaction and likely rutting. So if we're worried about altering water quality, altering that actual absorption capacity of a bog for stormwaters, I think this is a pretty big question that really would deserve an NOI. So I'm not supportive of this being a simple RDA. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Angela?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I did a deep dive in this because I was on the RDA end because this has been three very different RDAs. And I was trying to understand that you were just changing the commodity. And I didn't understand the use of the word normal. And I thank you, Bill, very much for explaining this because I was diving into the 310.10.05 part of this regulation where it does say, does the proposed activity qualify as normal maintenance and improvements? And I didn't know why they were using the word normal that way. If so, and the land is found to be in agricultural use, then the agricultural exemption applies. But who is determining normal here? And I know I'm rather new to the commission, but I just learned now, Arlene, that you're not, it's like a Christmas tree farm now. You're not planting timber to be harvested, but I didn't see Christmas trees on the list I saw. Now I understand what you said, what kind of trees you're doing. But is that considered normal? If you had come and asked to just be a cranberry farm again, I would have thought, okay, here's an RDA. That sounds right. We're just going to continue the activity that was here before. But in changing the commodity, which I understand we can do, how do we determine what is considered normal and affecting the land, which is, I think, now what we're getting into the nitty gritty with both Pete and Bill. So that's my concern or question as I dove into this. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Arlene, you want to answer first?
Sure. So the section of the regulations that allows for this to go on is 1004, too many numbers, 10.4 C1F. And it reads in part a change in commodity other than from maple sap production or forest products to any other commodity, provided that there is no filling of bordering vegetated wetland and drainage ditches or subsurface drainage systems are not increased or enlarged, are normal improvement of land in agriculture. And there are a lot of things in that section that are not minor changes in terms of what happens to the land. Nevertheless, for farming purposes, they are considered normal maintenance. So you want to look at, again, that's 10.04 section C, which is normal improvement of land in agricultural use, and then subsection 1F. And I have, by the way, spoken with the gentleman at DEP who is and has been the staff person for agricultural projects for a very long time, Gary McCutch. And Gary agrees that as long as we're not changing the topography or the ditch system or the irrigation system, that the conversion to plant trees here is allowable under that section.
Thank you, Arlene. Any more questions from the commissioner? Pete?
Yes. So, quick question again. My concern is the actual then harvesting of these trees. They're not saplings. They're starting to become trees. Is the plan to put down some kind of weight distributing surface on top of a bog softness to get a tree spade in there, and then the removal? I mean, if you're removing the ball of soil, you're obviously affecting the surface of that wetland. So I think this is a bigger question that I don't feel comfortable with just an RDA. Thank you.
Yeah. It's Joyce Landscaping that's going to be doing the work. And they tell me that they can do both the planting and the harvest without damaging the soil structure, that is, without undue compression to the soils. If they were to need a large machine, I'm sure that they would put down construction pads in order to accomplish that, Pete.
Well, I would like to actually hear from them rather than third person response to this. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, excuse me, Tom. Thank you. I really think we're sort of mixing two different issues. One is the legal issue of whether that continues to be a land subject to the agricultural exemption. And I kind of lean with Ed. Bill, I too try to read through this, and it reminds me of my days in law school reading Black Law Dictionary. I got so lost, I kept on going back and forth with Ed, and he with the lawyer, trying to understand the legal issues that were involved in this. And from a legal point of view, I would agree with Ed's conclusion. I think that this clearly falls within the regulation for the agricultural exemption. But then there is a second issue, which I think is where Peter was going. And Pete, jump in if I'm wrong and guessing where your thinking is. But your concern seems to be more from the environmental impact of the commodity change.
Most certainly.
Yeah, well, so am I.
No, I understand, Bill, but I think you were going both the legal issues and the environmental issues. What I'm saying is I would not disagree with you, but I think from a legal point of view, they're justified. I do, however, share Pete's concern and yours relative to the environmental impact of this. I know what little I know about harvesting in the cranberry bog, which is wet, is significantly different from an environmental point of view of cutting 5 and 6 or 7 inch trees as you sell them, or pulling them up, not cutting them, but pulling them up with the roots, et cetera. So My concern, Arlene, is not the legal definition. I think you are right there. I think Ed is right there. My concern is with Peter Sampoo's suggestion that the potential negative environmental impact of this needs to be controlled. And that can only be done by the filing of an NOI with answers or addressing some of the concerns that Peter and I would share. So that's my thinking.
Thank you, John. Bill, your hand's up.
Yes, it is. I would refer John and others to that in that 132-page guide by the DEP on page 215. There is a table, and it says table for determining jurisdiction. And the very first one comes up with, yes, it's exempt. And it says, is it subject to protection? Yes. Is the land in ag use? Yes. Is it subject to regulation? Yes. And is it normal maintenance improvement? Yes. And then, okay, it's exempt. The third option is yes, yes, yes. And then it goes, is it normal maintenance improvement? And it seems to me that this whole idea of timber, tree production in a wetland is really, really, really not normal. This to me is unprecedented. I mean, I would love to know how many times has a cranberry bog been converted into growing wetland trees? I mean, if there were like 3 or 4 of these, but that's not normal. So for that reason, I think there's a regulatory legal reason. I think that's what, and it's because things are so. Can you hear me? Have I been?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, all of a sudden my thing said I'm being transcribed. But I've lost my track. Forget it. Anyway,
You're talking about normal, the definition of normal under that number 3.
Yeah, I just think it's not normal, and it. Anyway, I just think that's a legal challenge. Oh, the point I was going to make is that the regulations 310 CMR blah blah is complex, is subtle, and it's not really clean, and so they recognize that, and they all and the DEP and the farmers and yada yada all they got together, and that's why they generated this document to try to address these nuances and these confusion, the confusion. And that's why, what is the activity? Well, no, it's not the land. Yeah, we've had it for 5 years. It's the actual activity. What are you going to be doing? And is it normal for that? And I just think that's why they have the guideline to try to help commissioners navigate these complicated questions. And I feel like there really is a real potential, again, like Pete and you are concerned with, as am I, the long-term consequences of this project. And to just say, yeah, okay, have a indefinite, let's go the next 50 years with a ag exemption for something that we really aren't too sure about. It's so unnormal. It's so abnormal that I'm like going, huh? How could we just do that? Anyway, thank you. That's my last word.
Thank you, Bill. John, your hand's up. John,
you gotta mute. You're muted.
There you go. I'll put it down, Tom. Again, Bill, and I know that Ed and Tom met with town attorneys. They went through this. Ed and I have gone back and forth in texts and a couple of phone calls about this. And in all due respect, as I say, it is my opinion that the applicant is right in the legal positions, in the definitions. No disrespect to you, but we would disagree. I think Ed would disagree, and I do think the town attorney would disagree with you. But having said that, I am still concerned with the potential environmental impacts of this commodity change. So that's where I would strongly agree with the issues that Dr. Sampoo was raising. That's all.
Thank you, John. Angela?
Yeah, if this was withdrawn without prejudice and came back as an NOI, would the commissioners be okay with it then? If it had a harvest plan, if it had a plan to it as to how we were going to move forward with this now nursery of trees?
Angela, we cannot really make a presumption that we would approve it. I mean, if we need more information, we would have to. I mean, unless Ali want to consider withdrawal. Otherwise, this would be a positive, but need more information to substantiate.
And I guess I should have asked it differently. If it was an NOI that had a harvesting plan to it, if it came that way, we wouldn't be discussing that then. We would be
it would be less of a discussions, but then they would still have to try to address the questions that Peter raised. If you have a machine going over the ditch, how is that going to protect without erosions, without compactions, and all this?
Right, but an NOI is where that would have been dealt with, not here as an RDA.
Right.
That's all I meant. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
John, I mean, our John, you want to say something?
No, sir. No, thank you.
Jeffrey has his hand up.
Oh, sorry, Jeffrey.
Yes, Tom, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Question and a comment. The question is, I've heard the word silviculture mentioned a couple of times by Arlene, and just hoping for some additional clarification on that as to, I was under the impression that silviculture was tied more to an existing forest or existing, tree alignment, as whereby I'm seeing this is starting from scratch. So I'm not sure everyone's tuned into what the true definition that you've mentioned regarding silviculture. That's a question to you, Arlene. But then number two is the question regarding compaction, or the statements by Bill, John, Angela, basically the whole board. And I know this pretty well. The one matter that I would have a concern with is indeed the trees getting too big, the 3 to 4 inch, and the spading of those, as opposed to something, smaller in the 1.5 to 2 inch that it would be, would need smaller equipment, therefore smaller compaction to harvest. So anyways, just looking, that's a comment on top of the silviculture question. So anyways, could you clarify?
I can try. My understanding of the way the regs are used is that silviculture is the growing of trees, not just harvest of timber, which can also be silviculture, but it's planting, growing, and sort of nursery stock of trees, as opposed to shrubs or herbaceous material. So it's a very general term. This is going to be a tree nursery.
Right. Okay. I think we have talked enough on this. Channel 18, any public comment on this one?
I'd like to comment, please.
Can you mention your name and address? I think Kim need to mark it down.
Sure. My name is Ellen LaBerge, Laberge. I live in Syracuse, New York, but I own a home at 1257 Bumps River Road in Centerville, which is across from this property. And I'm also the secretary of the Friends of the Centerville Cranberry Bog Preservation, Inc. And I've submitted a letter to you, Mr. Chairman, and I believe it was shared with the other commissioners, Mr. Hoops and some others.
You did.
I know it's long, and I appreciate everybody's interest. I want to piggyback really on some concerns raised by Mr. Hearn, and also talk about a legal issue. I'm a lawyer by training. I'm not in Massachusetts, but one of the things here that I think people have really jumped over is that this exemption applies if you have land involved, Ms. Wilson's mentioned it, in agricultural or aquacultural use. And in the guide that Mr. Hearn read, it has to be presently and primarily in commercial use. That means it has to be used for commercial purposes, characterized by the activity of selling and the goal of making a profit. The last time this property was cropped, if you will, it was by the Jenkins family, which operated cranberry bogs throughout Cape Cod since the 1850s. It's now owned by an LLC whose managing member is a young man who's got a lot of interests. He's a billionaire in Boston. And I don't believe he has any background in raising, selling, or otherwise dealing with trees. And there's no proof. There's a letter indicating from Bog Partners that it may someday own a nursery. There's no grower certificate. There's no plan. And the guide that Mr. Hearn suggested indicated that it was perfectly appropriate for this commission to ask for that kind of proof. Is this really going to be a commercial nursery? We haven't seen that. So in my opinion, this is not land in agricultural use. I think you're entitled to have that. The other reason I say that is when this land was reportedly purchased by Bog Partners LLC, or really by Sam Slater, its principal, the purchase and sale agreement at that time indicated that the land was going out of agriculture because it was being acquired for residential use. That was brought before this commission's attention in 2021, when you remember we were here with the issue of putting the fence around the bog. And again, I don't see that proof has been presented to you to indicate that this is now going to be a commercial tree nursery, entitling it to the exemption from the process of the NOI. And so I would respectfully request that you issue a positive determination that the wetlands regs are applicable. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Channel 18, Sarah, is there any more public comment on this one?
I believe that was all we had.
No, I would like to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not sure which item that you're on. I apologize.
That's okay. No, my name is Sandy Jones, and I would like to speak regarding this.
Yeah. Can you tell us your address?
Sure. It's 98 Park Avenue in Centerville. I live right around the corner from the bog. And the reason why I'm calling today is because when the Bog Partners purchased the 4 parcels over there, they actually changed the zoning with the town of Barnstable, and it was listed as agricultural. But if you were to look up those parcels right now, they're listed as R1 residential. It came through a FOIA request through the town of Barnstable. The town attorney stated that the Jenkins attorney said that the property would be used for residential. The trees that are potentially going to be planted throughout these parcels, if you plant it at 2 to 3 size caliber, the birches and the maples grow very quickly. A 3 to 4 size caliber tree would have a canopy, especially the birches. It would have a very large canopy. The trees designed that Joyce put together are 20 feet apart, but it would damage in order for the trees to be dug up, burlapped, and transported. It's too small of an area for that to happen. Yes, Joyce Landscaping is a well-established company, but I would rather see somebody like Dale Tree Movers or Harry Johnson Tree Farm come in and back up what Miss Wilson said. But again, the time that it would come for the harvesting, you're going over a spongy parcel of property, and it's going to affect the ecosystem and whatnot. And then lastly, what I would ask is that, will this property, so is this change from cranberries to a tree farm, is this being done because of it's some kind of mitigation plan? And will Bog Partners decide after the trees to change it to another use? And again, there's a letter that was forwarded to the board that said the buyer was interested in residential. They changed the zoning with the town of Barnstable. We're not really quite sure what his plans and use are for this property. But if you look at the size trees, especially the birches and the maples, and the size of their canopies, and to dig them up, there will be damage done to the bog area itself. And I think that you really truly need a plan put in place before you could approve this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Channel 18, any more public comment on this one?
Okay, Robert Inrizano is on mute, waving his hand. Robert, you're on mute. Am I okay, Tom, to recognize this guy? I'm sorry.
I did not.
Can you hear me now?
What is your address, Robert? What is your address?
I live at 63 Payne Street, Winthrop, Mass. My wife owns a piece of property at 47 Longfellow in Centerville, okay?
Okay.
And I had sent a letter regarding a request that this be suspended, which I understand it can't. However, the case is still pending in the court and is under appeal. The case has not been resolved regarding the blog LLC. So that's basically what I wanted to tell you at this point in time. I understand that Arlene said that the case has been dismissed or whatever, but it's not certain at this point, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
That's what I mentioned up front, is that we, under the chapter 661A, or the title regarding to the land, is not our jurisdictions under the Conservation Commissions. So that is under legal from a town to deal with, and so it's completely, we cannot make any determination on that.
I understand that. Also, the title has a defect, okay? I'm a title examiner. I do real estate, a lot of real estate law, and that title has a problem, okay? But other than that, it's up to you.
I understand that, but
okay.
We cannot deal with the title as far as I'm concerned.
I understand.
As conservation goes. Any other comment from the public? Channel 18.
Yes, Ron Knight.
Yes, my name's Ron Knight. I live at 27 Calmia Way, Centerville. I actually abut the bog on the east end of the bog. And I appreciate having an opportunity to speak. I did send a letter in, along with myself and one other neighbor, concerning what is being proposed by Bog Partners. I'm not going to go through the letter, but I just want to bring up a couple points about it. In the second paragraph of the letter that I sent, I highlighted the comment stating that public record indicates that this is quote, the public record indicates that the applicant does not hold valid and indefeasible title to the property that is subject to this application. This comes, I know you don't deal with title, but this comes from the town attorney. This is a letter that's also in one of the attachments which we sent in with the letter. I think it's important to know that if it is determined, since just as the previous speaker stated, it is right now presently going to be appealed. And if so, then, and it's determined that the town does have the opportunity to look at this property and have 120 days. I was at a town open space meeting about 2 weeks ago, and they seemed very receptive to if they had an opportunity to obtain this property, and also to let it be known that the Barnstable Land Trust has already expressed, and they not only desire, but that they also have the funds to obtain and maintain this property. In light of all of these facts, I just would not ask you to approve Bog Partners' request. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a Rob Boone.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was the other signatory to the letter that Ron Knight just mentioned, and I also won't repeat that because the commissioners have it. And I do understand and appreciate, Mr. Chairman, that it's not within the commission's jurisdiction to decide title issues, but the commission doesn't have to make any decision about the title to rule against the applicant's requests simply based on the current status of the title. And that status is the public records indicate, public records, that the applicant does not hold valid and indefeasible title. And that comes from the town attorney's November 29th, 2021 letter, which says exactly that. And on that basis alone, even before getting to the environmental issues that the commissioners raised, the commission should not issue a negative determination. The other couple points are the applicant has submitted a summary judgment order on a litigation case that was mentioned. I'm not a party to that lawsuit, but I am very familiar with it. And what the court's order, the court's order does not help Bog Partners in this application because that.
We lost you. Rob.
He went on to mute. He's on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry. I was saying, just I don't know where I got cut off. I was saying my second point was that the Bog Partners has submitted a summary judgment order on a litigation case. I'm not a party to that case, but I'm very familiar with it. And the order that was submitted to the commission does not help the applicant because that Superior Court decision just concluded that the plaintiffs didn't have standing to pursue their claims in that court. Now, I don't know if the court was right, if the court was wrong, if the decision will be upheld on appeal, but for purposes of this application, it doesn't matter because there's no court decision in the Superior Court, in the Land Court, or in any other court, and there's certainly no final judicial determination anywhere that the applicant has good title to the property. What the commission does have is the town attorney's letter that says the applicant does not have good title. My second to last point is what the court order submitted to the commission does say is that the court found, quote, no genuine issue of material fact, close quote, and that's because it's undisputed that the required Chapter 61A notices were not sent in 2021 or any time since then. I mean, for example, the commission itself knows that the commission to this day has never received the mandatory notice from the Jenkins Trust as required by Massachusetts law. And because those notices were not sent, that's why the town attorney wrote that the applicant's title is, quote, defective and defeasible, close quote. So unless and until there's some final judicial or other binding determination to the contrary, the current status of the title remains that it is defective and defeasible per the town attorney. And my final point is, I do understand, Mr. Chairman, you mentioned it at the outset, that the commission has to act on this application decisively within 21 days so as to not lose jurisdiction over the application. And therefore, I would either urge a positive determination or other appropriate action effectively disapproving the applicant's request, but in no case issuing a negative determination. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. And Ed and I have been discussing these applications with the town's legal as far as the title goes. And she keep reminding us we have to look at this application by itself and looking at the title wise of the land because we don't have any jurisdictions as far as the title of the land goes. So I think we talk enough about this questions. Listening to all the comments from the commissioner, let me try this and see how it goes. I think we have some concerning about some informations about harvesting the tree, what is the impact, is the erosions and the forest farm plan and that sort of things. Could I have a motion?
Tom, excuse me.
Yes.
Could I just briefly respond to a couple of the comments?
Okay.
Someone brought up the need for a grower's certificate to have a nursery. I just want the commission to understand that that certificate has been applied for. The fees have been paid. They're just waiting for it to issue. And the issue of the tax or the change from agricultural use to residential use at the time of acquisition, as I've told the commission in the past, is simply relevant to the tax exempt status. The current owners were not interested in a tax exemption, and therefore it is being taxed residentially. It has nothing to do with whether the land is or is not in agriculture. And I think the commission understands that the in agricultural use section of the regs allows for the land to go without harvesting or maintenance for 5 years. And we have been maintaining this last year and the previous year, although it hasn't been harvested. That will be 5 years this fall. Thank you.
Mr. Commissioner, may I just throw in something? I know you're going to take action, but I just want to make sure you understand. In 2021, when the purchase and sale agreement was executed between the buyer and the seller, there's a representation in the agreement that the seller acknowledges buyer's intent is to discontinue horticultural use of the property. So it's not just a tax change. This was what was said when Sam Slater put in an offer to purchase this property, and the town didn't get proper notice of its right of first refusal. So it isn't just a tax. It was a representation that he was not interested in having horticulture use. It hasn't been farmed. And this is just a way to kind of sneak it in when there isn't a commercial purpose and the land is not in agriculture use. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me try this. We have enough talk about this. Could I have a motion to approve this as a positive determinations that we need more information about the erosion control, the compactions when the harvesting of the trees, and whether there would be a need for the farm plans to support what you wanted to do?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Tangney, aye. Sampu,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Kashulik,
Aye.
Hearn,
Aye.
Abadili.
You're on mute.
John?
I apologize.
It's okay.
Thanks, Bill. Aye.
That's
Thank you,
unanimous,
Bill.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Yep. The next RDA, the last RDA is Roger and Marley Builders on behalf of Sarah Elger proposed septic upgrades to septic system to include removal of existing leach pits, replacement of septic tanks, installation of a new septic sanitary absorption field, and upgrades to plumbings at 72 Harpons Road, Osterville, as shown as Assessors Map 115, Parcel 018. Katrina?
Yes, hello. This is Katerina Korolov speaking.
Sorry.
I hope you can hear me well. I'm with Strong Tree Engineering, and I appreciate you taking part of your evening to hear us tonight. So we are representing both Mr. Charlie Snow, who is a builder with Rogers and Marnie Builders, and Sarah Alger, who is a part of the Alger family, who owns the home at 72 Hathaway Road, which is a residence 4 bedrooms. Now, for many, many years, it was occupied by one elderly lady who has since passed on, and she was an Alger family, and now the family has this house, and they are now attempting to make the basic but important critical septic upgrades so that they can, do what they need to do in order to, move the house forward. So these upgrades include under Title 5 to abandon the existing septic tank. And I apologize that I don't have an option to share the screen. If you are able to put the site plan up there. But essentially, there is a small pocket of isolated vegetative wetland in the backyard. The backyard slopes in a northerly direction.
Ed or Kim, can you put on the site plan?
I'm working on it. It's going to be a while. I don't have it loaded.
Okay. Go ahead.
Sure. So there is an area to the north of isolated vegetated wetlands, and so there's a slopage down to that area. Now, there are 2 existing leach pits associated with the current septic system. One of those leach pits is within the 0 to 50-foot wetland buffer. We propose to remove that and any associated piping. And that would be our only actual direct interaction with the 0 to 50-foot buffer zone would be to remove and ultimately improve, because rather than the septic system eventually flowing out towards that leach pit closer to the wetland, our proposed septic system is on the opposite side of the house. It's outside of the 100-foot wetland buffer. We propose to upgrade the septic tank. We would install a new absorption system. It would be gravity fed. We would upgrade the pipes. As part of this, we may need to lift up some of the porch to get to the pipes, and then we would just replace that part of the porch as needed. It's not a vanity project. It's just to get those upgrades done. So again, we would remove 2 existing leach pits, one that's in the buffer zone and one that's on the southwest side of the house outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. But regardless, it would be removed, and those 2 would be replaced by the upgraded system, thereby improving the property and its relevance to the wetlands. And we just hope that you will hear this and allow us to move forward with this necessary septic upgrade project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Questions? Angela?
Yes, I just wanted to say, in summary, correct me if I'm wrong, flood zone only, the upgrade is out of the 100-foot buffer. This should be a slam dunk RDA compared to what we've been doing, correct? Just try to move the meeting along. Thank you.
Correct.
Thank you.
The only thing, though, is this is just to give you the conservation's permit itself, and you still need to get these permit from the Board of Health for the constructions of this. So, any other question from the commissioner? Channel 18, any public comment on this?
I do not believe so.
Thank you. Could I have a motion to approve this project as a negative determination?
So moved. Second.
Roll call.
Abadili.
Aye.
Hearn.
Aye.
Kashulik.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Sampu.
Aye.
And Tagny, aye. That's unanimous, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you very much. Have a great night.
Yep. We have 4 NOIs tonight. The first one is Oyster Harbor Club, Inc., to replace existing stair down the bank at 170 Grand Island Drive, Oysterville, as shown on the Assessors Map 053, Parcel 012-001. John?
Good evening, John O'Day from Sullivan Engineering Consulting. I'm representing the Oyster Harbors Club this evening. I will bring up the plan for you all. I believe all the commissioners at this point are pretty well familiar with the site, as we've, over the years, rebuilt the main building, the tennis building, most recently this beach cabana. We are here this evening seeking to replace the stairs down the bank leading towards that beach cabana. The existing stairway is a in-ground cement stair, and we are proposing to remove that and build your typical elevated timber stairway with open risers and space underneath it. We have created a small landing about mid-bank because the distance from the top of the bank to the bottom of the bank, the number of risers exceeds what building codes would otherwise allow for a stairway. But this is just a sort of 4-foot landing. There's an existing tree that we are basically jogging around to get there, had it staked out. I don't see that it's going to be any disturbance, and actually we've offered some plants to go back in that area where the existing in-ground cement ones are removed. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, John. Question from the commissioner. I didn't see any hands up.
Yes, one quick
John?
question.
John?
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with the computer, so I'm fighting that a little bit. John, I assume the condition would be standard that any vegetation destroyed would be replaced.
Fine with that standard condition, and we're adding it back into where we're removing the old one. So
great, thank you.
No issue.
Any other question from the commissioner? Channel 18, any public comment on this one?
There's no public comment on this item.
Thank you, Sarah. Could I have a motion to approve this project as submitted?
So moved. Second.
Roll call.
Abadili.
Aye.
Hearn.
Aye.
Kuchulik.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Sempu.
Aye.
And Tagny, aye. That's unanimous, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The next NOI is Alexia Fix, Trustee 333 Superior Road Realty Trust, proposed landscaping improvement to include tree removal, lawn improvement, and artificial turf putting green, fencing, animal fencing, and shelter and buffer restoration with native planting at 333 Superior Road, Australia, as on Assessors Map 095, Parcel 008. Is that John?
Yes, good evening. John O'Day from Sullivan Engineering Consulting, again representing the applicants. Also here this evening is Alicia Fix, who is the trustee of the property. This property is located at 333 Sepuit Road. A little bit of background, the family has been on the street for about 20 years. This is probably our fourth or fifth notice of intent on various properties that have been brought before you. This parcel that we're before you with this evening, being 333 Sepuit, is a 6-acre parcel. At the end of Sepuit, a little bit of history. This parcel was, and all of Sepuit and Fox Island and everything else, was part of the Sepuit Links golf course, which was, kind of an original golf course in the area. We're working in this area, which was the first hole of that golf course. The applicants purchased this property about 4 years ago, and really with the aim of not having it become 3 or 4 other residential lots on the street. As I flip to the actual plan for you all. So our wetland resources, to the southwest, we have Dam Pond, which is a coastal pond. There's a salt marsh fringe along that, and there's also coastal bank and land subject to coastal storm flowage. To the north of the parcel is Bog Pond, not a tidal pond, but it does have a small bordering vegetated wetland along it. The property to our interior, 359, is currently being developed as a single-family dwelling. Portions of that work were approved by the commission about a year ago. As was stated, this project is for landscape improvements. Primary area of work being between the dwelling and Dam Pond. As I mentioned, they are, somewhat trying to recreate this historical vision of this being a part of a golf course, but at the same time trying to recognize and understand and through their years of experience with the commission and other properties, bring something before you that is a palatable project. Historically, this hole had probably run right along the shoreline. We are not here seeking that today. We are requesting to remove some trees all outside of the 50-foot buffer. There will remain probably about 170 trees within the buffer zone. So we are not clearing this site by any means. We are proposing to improve the lawn, have a better lawn with some loam and hydroseed and irrigation outside of the 75-foot buffer to the coastal bank. So that's sort of designated with this line in here. Everything within the 75-foot buffer is going to remain the sort of existing Cape Cod lawn. No irrigation proposed in the 50-foot buffer. No fertilizing proposed in the 50-foot buffer. There is a fence surrounding this area, proposed all within existing developed areas. At the tip of the property where the green had been, we are proposing an artificial turf area all outside of the 50-foot buffer. Again, where this had probably been right up to the shore's edge. We're pulling everything in. We think that the artificial turf will be a better situation for the environment. Obviously, no fertilizers, no chemicals, well draining, and everything else. Beyond that, there is an additional area of landscaping in the south corner of the property where a fencing is proposed, again, outside of the 50-foot buffer. This is meant to be sort of a animal fence enclosure. There are other properties which are being used as farm in the neighborhood, and this might be a place where some farm animals could be, smaller farm animals. We're envisioning something maybe like a goat in this area, leaving all of the existing trees, couple of maybe shelters proposed outside of the 50-foot buffer, like a lean-to sort, outside of the 100-foot buffer, I should say, like a lean-to or something like that. I think that that's a brief summary of the project, and we're here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, John. Bill?
Yeah, I recently visited the site, and I don't know how to put this. I look at the 50 to 100 foot zone where all of those trees are destined to be cut down, and you're putting in the very kind of like a light gray forest, if you will, that you see there. Yes. And there's a substantial artificial turf that's going in there, and I understand the reasoning. You don't have to do pesticides and fertilizers, but I just had this sense that there's some, impact to wildlife. I mean, obviously the 0 to 50, you're not doing anything, and from a, I just think there seems to be an effect to wildlife, which is one of our concerns for under the Wetlands Protection Act, one of the functions, and I just want to try to improve the habitat for wildlife as well as potential runoff issues. The way you right now you have proposed some mitigation planting, which is along that west bank, and it's in the 0 to 50 zone. And then there's a long fence. You can have some kind of, I guess I'm assuming, a chain link fence or what have you, running along there. And I thought, why couldn't you just allow that additional space between the planting and the fence? Just let it grow wild. Don't mow it. Just let it run. I think you are. See that little? You got the little circle dot fence.
Yes.
And it's almost like, why not just along that area? Just let it run wild, because you're not, for all practical purposes, ever going to really be using it. And it would create more of a filtration, perhaps a little more wildlife habitat. And I don't see that it would be, any kind of an adverse effect to the owner. And it would further enhance the 0 to 50 buffer. Is that an unreasonable request?
So and I'm glad that you brought up the restoration because I passed right by that, and so I'm glad you made me zoom in and highlight this. That yes, the only thing we are doing within the 50-foot buffer is some restoration. We're not dealing with any sort of hardscape, but again, sort of understanding and having been through the process with them on other properties, the commission's desire towards restoring that. And so this would be sort of a continuation of mitigation that was approved along the Bog Pond side under the prior order. What I can tell you is that the reason that we left that band there is that there are carts used here, what they call it, a golf cart or a utility cart or a thing like that. And just as, you know, the cartway was left along the north bog pond, we tried to leave that an area outside of the fence and outside of what would be mitigation as a cart pathway.
Isn't there a cart, excuse me, but there's a cart pathway right up against the water line, like about a foot away. In fact, where it says way on the far left.
I agree. And we wonder whether that's still going to be something that can be cart pathed on in 20 years as tides change and things. And really that is why we said we should really kind of designate a place that could be.
In other words, if it eventually the sea level rises, floods that, you need a place to have a cart. Is that
was kind of why we said let's leave 8 feet here and between them and have a place for that way to be relocated.
Are you all set, Bill?
I am. I wish they could fill that in and just let it run wild and just not mow it. I mean, I don't know. Not even plantings, but if you ever needed it, then you could end up putting in a path if the thing gets flooded. I don't know. I'm just looking to try to figure out how you can help the 0 to 50. I don't know. Thank you. That's all.
Well, thank you for mentioning about the cart path. And I blow up the drawing, and if you look at the north of the property, where if you follow the cart path, the cartway, the label to the part of the cartway seems to be in the resource area.
Yeah, it's right on the edge of the water. It's right.
It's on the other side of the resource area, not the landward side. So it's the other side of the resource area. That's what I'm saying. Right?
Yeah. Can I say something? Because this was a long discussion about narrowing the cart path the last time. So I'm not concerned, but there is a cart path there, a wide one for them to take carts around or whatever. And we did do this, that whole resource area.
Yeah, but let me finish this. And then, John, you mentioned, you're explaining that there's a cart path right next to the fence. If the homeowner can use that cart path and let the other cart path in the resource area grow back and not using it, and would that be an option? I just want to follow it up, Angela.
No, thank you. And I don't want to belate the cart path. I actually appreciate that you really tried to put this little artificial golf turf and everything out of the 50. So we're not negotiating that and arguing about it. You did a nice job of pulling it in. I did notice it's a stretch to call that lawn there now when they've been developing the house, and there's not really lawn there, but I do understand the improvements. My question has to do with where will these goats and alpacas be roaming, and won't they be eating the grass that Bill's asking you not to mow? Where exactly do they roam?
So again, we have learned more about alpaca than I ever wanted to know over the last few years. And so it is my understanding that in general, alpaca probably would not be within this primary fenced area because alpaca have a very specific grass digestive system and things. So even like our native grasses left alone are not good foraging for them. So there is special grasses literally in that fenced-in area up closer to the road and across the street that are alpaca-friendly.
Got it.
Seeds. So this is, like I said, I think more on the southern side. There wouldn't be grasses, etc., for them to eat because it's just staying duff, whatever.
Would the goats then go up where Bill's asking for a little more grass and everything? Are you going to let the goats go eat the poison ivy? Because goats will love this.
Wasn't the intention to let goats, things outside or seaward of the fenced areas.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I just wanted to understand the animal farm. Sounds like a lot. Thank you.
John?
Yeah, I step back a little bit and I look at this project as a whole and whether it complies with the regulation about that the project can be completed without deteriorating the environment. I look at this as a positive from an environmental point of view, notwithstanding the specific issues that Bill and Angela were raising, but overall, I think it is a very positive project from an environmental point of view.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any other question from the commissioner? John, what do you think about the path?
The problem with the cart path is that it is actually, I'm trying to move the note. It is actually a way. The existing line is a way per land court plans that there are other people within the community that have rights within. So I don't think it would be within our rights today to agree to eliminate it.
Okay. But it's a question in this. Well, I mean, we can keep that in mind because in the question that is all in the resource area. As you're in the future, the water line is going to move up, and that will be flooded.
I accept that.
Channel 18. Any public comment on this?
There's no public comment on this item.
Thank you. Could I have a motion to approve this project as submitted?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili.
Aye.
Hearn.
Aye.
Kashulik.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Sampu.
Aye.
And Tagney, aye. That's unanimous, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Channel 18, can we take a 5-minute break? We'll come back at 5 minutes 25 is
8:25.
or 8:25.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, thanks.
You're all set to go back on the record.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. The next NOI is 160 Peppercoin LLC. Additions to existing building, relocation of pool equipment, rebuilding existing deck, rebuilding existing pool terrace, installation of planter, walk, driveway, and motor court at 160 Peppercoin Lane and 0 Peppercoin Lane, contour as shown on the assessors map 004, parcel 011 and 013-002. Lauren?
Hi, Lauren Cronin with Gregory Lombardi Design. We're the landscape architects here on behalf of Craig and Joni Harrison, who are the owners of the property. They're on the call tonight if they need to make any comments. And also Chuck Rowland of Cape and Islands Engineering is here to talk about septic systems. Let me share my screen here. Okay, so this is the property here in question. It is about 3.8 acres. There's a salt marsh on the western and northern edge of it with a 100-foot buffer offset from there. And there's portions of the property that were within the an AE flood zone. The property does have an intact 50-foot buffer of native vegetation, which is great. And the proposed work, let me switch to the engineering plan here, it's a previously developed site. So there's an existing house on it. There's a tennis court, there's a pool, driveway and motor court, all existing. The proposed work is a few smaller additions to the main house. Most of them are actually outside of the 100-foot buffer, but there's a few that reach into the 100-foot buffer. So there's an addition to the garage here. It just kind of clips the edge of the buffer line, which is this green line here. The doors on the garage are actually getting moved to the end of the building here. So we'll are proposing to build a parking court on that end of the building. It would be dry set granite and gravel. There's a freestanding stone wall that would get constructed here as well, and a fenced area for dogs, but also it acts as part of the pool enclosure fence, the whole house here. There's a small addition on the back side of the house here. It's currently deck area that is getting enclosed. There's a little piece of the deck that gets rebuilt in this zone. There's a kind of covered porch area on this end of the house that expands a little bit, like a couple feet. And then there's a section of existing deck that gets converted into stone pool terrace. The existing pool equipment lives out here in this zone, and we're pulling it out of the buffer zone entirely to the other side of the house. There's a concrete retaining wall proposed here that makes a planted space behind it. Part of the existing pool terrace is getting converted to wood deck, and there's a little bit of expansion of paving on the corner of the terrace here within the buffer zone. Let me see what else. There's this corner of the motor court is within the flood zone here. It's actually existing motor court is getting reconfigured a little bit. There's a freestanding stone wall here that's getting constructed, and the gravel driveway that's going to come through from the 166 lot will connect into this proposed motor court here. Let's see. And then there's a perimeter fence proposed for the kind of landward property lines that are running along this edge. All that being said, it results in an additional 2,115 square feet of hardscape within the 50 to 100-foot buffer zone. I think since we do have an intact 50-foot buffer, I'm not sure there's technically a mitigation requirement, but we are providing 6,900 square feet of native planting to revegetate areas that are bare kind of along the deck and below the pool, along this edge in the flood zone, and then converting some lawn space over here to native planting. I think that's it. Chuck, do you have anything to say about the septic system as well?
Can everyone hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
If you switch over to the septic plan and zoom in, we've incorporated some drainage structures that will take the roof drainage as well as the drainage from the parking court with a dry well. We've shown a Title V septic system with a 1,500 gallon septic tank, D-box, and flow diffusers in the parking court area, as well as I've shown a reserve area off to the east and a vent. So with that, I think we meet the minimum requirements for Title V. And I think it's a real improvement with catching all the stormwater with the expansion in that area. And then the catch basins can also be used as a pooled drawdown pit, which I know is something that this commission likes to see.
Thank you, Chuck. Couple of things in here. Number one, did you receive the DEP number for your application?
I forgot to mention that I have not received it yet.
Okay. And then secondly, I think I need a revised plan. I need some dimensions on some of the addition that you are proposing. Right now, the plan does not show that. So usually we require that on the engineering plan so we know what it is. The other thing that you mentioned about a stone wall, and typically we would probably need the top of the wall, bottom of the wall, that kind of elevations on the revised plans. Other than that, I think I will leave it open to the commissioner. Question from the commissioner?
No.
No?
So Lauren, if you mind switching over to the other engineering plan, which is labeled 1 of 4. I think the one that you're showing right now is 2 of 4.
Right one.
Yeah, so if you scroll down a little bit, as you can see, those boxes are the dimensions of the ones that are inside your jurisdiction. But if you want, I can show the dimensions. I can add a couple more dimensions.
Yeah, add a couple more dimensions, especially on the wall, stone wall that you mentioned about that, top of the wall, bottom of the wall, right next to the proposed parking court.
Yeah, we're happy to show that. They're not going to be retaining anything, so they're more of an aesthetic landscape wall. It's not going to be retaining any grading, but obviously I'm happy to do that for you.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, when there is a wall, I'm always interested in how high and all that stuff. So it's all on the plan so that we know exactly what it is. Ed, did you get a chance to look at the planting plan?
Yeah, I did. I'm all good with that. It was a good plan all the way through.
On the planting plan, do we need the annual report for 3 years?
It's up to you. I don't know that you would necessarily have to do it. It's not really for in place of mitigation, but if I don't think there would be a harm to ask for it, but I don't think it's necessarily needed.
But I'm thinking that there's quite a bit of planting in there. But anyway, Channel 18. Any more comment from the commissioner? None.
From the public, you mean?
No, I'm going to the commissioner first, and then I'll go to the public.
Sorry.
That's okay. Sarah, any public comment on this one?
We had a few people that were on for this item. I'm not sure if they wanted to speak to public comment. If you're on for this item and you wanted to speak, now would be your opportunity. I believe we had, you're on the peppercorn item, right?
Yes, 160 peppercorn.
We had Craig, and Craig is still on, I believe, and Caleb and Allie. Oh, not Allie, I'm sorry. If you had anything, but they're not turning their cameras on or unmuting, so I think you're all set. Thank you.
Okay. Lauren, we need a continuance because we still waiting for the DEP number. Would April the 1st be acceptable?
Yes, that would be great.
Okay. Could I have a motion to approve this project subject to receipt of a revised plan showing all the dimensions and top of the wall, and then an annual report for 3 years and a continuance to April the 1st, waiting for the issuance of the DEP number?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Hold a
Tagney,
second, hold a
aye.
second. Hold a second. Quick clarification here. Is this going to be, if it's an aye vote, all we have to do then on April 1st is just receive that letter and it goes through, or do we have to vote again on April 1st?
Well, we have to kind of vote on April 1st, just the DEP number.
Exactly, and that's all it's going to be for, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, cool. Thanks.
We do have to take a vote, as Tom said. I would agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So Tagney, aye. Sampu?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Kashulik?
Aye.
Hearn?
Aye.
Abadili?
Aye.
That's unanimous. We'll move it to April 1st for continuance.
Thank you.
Good
Thank
luck.
you.
The last NOI is Senate Merriwan. Construct pool house, patio, and walkways, two attached additions, and garage and 251 Green Dome Drive, Centerville, as shown on the Assessors Map 245, parcel 033. Jose?
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Jose Pizarro. I am with Green Seal Environmental, representing the applicant. Can I ask permission to share my screen, please?
Yes, please.
You able to see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so the property is located in map 245, parcel 33, and it contains 6.9 acres. The resource areas were field delineated by Tunison Environmental Consultants back in November 11, 2024. And on the site, we found salt marsh, riverfront associated with Halls Creek, coastal beach, coastal dune, coastal bank, and areas subject to coastal flooding. In the field, Tunison delineated the mean high water with flags blue identified as 8.1 all the way to 8.28. He also flagged with pink survey flagging the edge of the salt marsh, and those were identified as B series, starting at B1 at the northeast corner of the property and running south. That goes all the way to B25 with a gap in another salt marsh area with same color flaggings, being B100 to B103. He used orange flagging to delineate the coastal dune, and started basically at the intersection with the mean high water, starting at wetland flag C1 and running west all the way to C12. The proposed improvements include the restoration of existing wooden walkway and stairs that provide access to the property to Crayville Beach. And if I can show you, are you able to see that image?
Yep.
Yep. Yep. Now it's gone.
Now there,
it was flashing for a second. Now it's coming back.
You see a point cloud there?
Yes.
Okay, good. So it repairs, this stairways is in disrepair. If you can see here, portions of it. This area over here, it's the rails or the walkway that was damaged during storms in the past, probably under the previous ownership. So the idea for this is fewer repairs, no increasing size, is just where it is and with the same type of design, just restore and make it safe and nice looking. Also, the proposal includes a 24 by 48 pickleball court, which I'm going to talk at the end about that. So don't pay too much attention to it at this point. It includes an attached 233 square feet addition with a walkway to the pool area. That is located here, attached to the building. We also propose a 22 by 24 pool house. It is this outline over here. A 16 by 38 pool with a 30-inch coping all around, a patio for the pool area, repairs and restoration of an existing storage structure, also used as a changing room that is located right here. So similar to the stairs is the exact same footprint. It's just repairs and restoration. We will have 3 by 9 a grilling area. It's located attached to the building here, this location. And also propose a 20 by 22 garage that is mostly over existing hardscape area that is going to be removed and replaced with that building. The majority of it that is located at this corner over here. Property. And we will also have a detached 32 by 40 garage. Is at the front of the property here. Drainage runoff overview. All of the new roofed areas proposed will have a gutter collection system and will be infiltrated at 2 proposed dry wells that are going to be installed outside of buffer zones or any conservation jurisdiction. And it will directly reduce the size of the watershed that otherwise would be draining onto the coastal bank. And I can show you where on site those are located. So the first one is right here, and this is the limits of jurisdiction. And the second one that will collect this roof, it's right here, right outside the limits of jurisdiction as well. The west dry well will also be used for pool emergency drawdown. So this is where if it happens that they need to draw down the pool, this is where it's gonna go, to this dry well. Erosion and sedimentation controls. We're gonna be installing 3 sections of hay bale to close out the main construction areas. Those are going to be tied to the existing retaining walls that exist on site. And wattles and steel fence at the limits of mitigation plantings. So first set of hay bales is right here from the property line all the way to the existing retaining wall. Second section from the concrete retaining wall to the stone retaining wall. And section number 3 from the existing building corner to the stone concrete wall. So that closes out any excavation for new construction, etc. And at the limits of work or limits of mitigation planting, it's where we're going to be putting the seal fence and straw wattles. And that is along this line over here and all around to prevent from any erosion into the resource area. For mitigation, we provided calculations as it is required on Chapter 704 for wetland buffer activity. It ended up being for the mitigation 3-to-1 between the 50 and 100, approximately 14,064 square feet, and mitigation 2-to-1 within the 200 feet riverfront. It will be 2,780 for a total of 6,844 square foot of mitigation plantings that will be provided. Again, in full compliance with 704. We also provided a landscape plan or a draft of a landscape plan for your review. So the hatch area is where the proposed mitigation plantings are going to be. And at this point, it is a combination of shrubs and perennial and grass mix. It's a total of, I believe, 318 plants, or around 300 shrubs, and 11,186 combination of perennial and grass mix. And what we have done is the landscape architect that we hired did the proposed landscaping plan for the property next door, map 245, lot 24. So what we have asked is we incorporate the same comments that were made for that property and make this plan to have some consistency of what the board requested before. And it was a very similar proposal, a pool in a pool house, some hardscape, but this is the property that I'm talking about here. That was the mitigation. So very similar proposal, a pool house, and some hardscape. Talk about that. Pre-application meeting remarks. So back in December 12th, 2024, we met with both of your agents at the time, Darcy and Edwin. We talked about what was recommended to present to you. So we revised the plans, made those revisions. At the time, they brought to my attention that there was a small patio that was constructed without a permit that was within jurisdiction. So at that point, we stopped everything, and that work was incorporated onto the mitigations calculations. So plantings and mitigations will be provided for that portion of the work. We also pay for the applicable double fees. So submitted the checks for down on that regards. At the time, we were also advised to file second notice of intent for a proposed dock. So that is not included here. I think I'm only showing on the plan as for general purposes, but there is a second NOI that is going to be before you on April 1st. And last minute remarks, I guess a last minute surprise, if you would. So today we received a call from the West Borders attorney that they would have opposition to the proposed pickleball court. So we had a conversation, and they also spoke with the property owner. And in response to that, the pickleball court, it's going to be removed from the proposal. So on record, I would like to request that portion be removed. We cannot do it as a condition, if you would, that portion is no longer going to be permitted. And with that, it's pretty much all I have. There was a lot of documentations on the records for this property. So overall, what I'm presenting to you is a proposal that, to the best of my knowledge, comply with current performance standards. Also, within those record documents, I could pick up and identify is that the board wanted to remove mowing and landscaping maintenance on the lawn areas that extends all the way to the edge of the bank. With this mitigation, that portion of the older problem is going to be mitigated very much with all the landscaping mitigation that is going to be provided. There was also a mini golf court site that there were a lot of complaints about golf balls being all over the place within the buffer areas. This proposal will also remove, in fact, they are already removed as part of the work they did without permit. So that mini golf course, they are going to be completely removed. So the golf ball situation is going to be no longer be an issue. So in addition to project that meets standards, you will get that. With that, I'm going to pass it back to you for discussion and comments and answer any questions.
Same question from the last applications. Did you receive any DEP number for your?
I see that the file is there. So this is their portal. However, I do not see a DEP number assigned to it.
Okay. So that means that we don't have a DEP number, that we will need a continuance, to waiting for the DEP number. But as far as the one that you're mentioning about the pickleball court would not be part of these applications. And in some of the structures, I think I need some dimension. So I need a revised plan to remove the pickleball court and adding some additional dimension that you're showing in there, but it's not quite clear. Especially
like for example, which one?
For example, the proposed addition, 233 square feet in a square. I don't know how you're going to get that plus or minus. I mean,
All right, yeah, that's an 8 by 20. Okay, yes, I understand. I will provide that to you for sure.
Same thing as proposed patio at grade. There's no dimension how big it is and so forth. So I trying to close out any loose ends in there so that we have a full picture of what's going on in there. You have a lot of label to some of the additions. Let's say you have the label on the pool house and all those stuff. So those are fine. Okay. The question for Ed, are you okay with the that Jose mentioned about the previous mitigations being included as part of this?
I'm still trying to work through that. I'm feeling better about it than what I did when we first started talking about this project. So I'm just looking through it now because the other thing I had a question about or a comment about was the plan that Jose showed for the landscaping and mitigation plantings does not appear to be the plan that I have. I've got a preliminary landscape plan.
Yes,
but
you are correct.
Like anything like that.
You are correct. This plan we submitted electronically after the fact.
So I did not get a chance to see that see this plan at all. I'm looking at a preliminary plan which left me lacking with a lot of information. So I would need time to take a look at that, and I can certainly do that. If you would provide a hard copy plan for me to take a look at as well.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Question or comment from the commissioner?
I do.
Bill?
Yeah, I visited this site this morning, and the 0 to 50 and the 50 to 100 was not at all marked out. I had no sense as to where, the top of the bank was, where the 0 to 50 buffer was, there's so much proposed planting and mitigation. It was really hard for me to figure out exactly where you were going to be doing the mitigation plantings. Overall, the area looks like it needs a ton of mitigation plantings, and you look like you're doing a lot, and you have a pretty minor disturbance in the 0 to 50. You're pulling away a putting green and you're putting in 52 square feet of a building. And I thought, it's kind of, given all of the planting, you're talking about 16,800 square feet. I thought, the place would benefit more by having the planting. The main question I have is, I'm looking at this, what is it, a 17 by 11.5 inch page, and it has the existing versus proposed disturbances. The second box from the bottom, I didn't know what that meant. It said existing versus proposed planting and lawn disturbances area calculation. And it looks as though you are removing 24,355 square feet of lawn.
Correct.
And then you are planting 14,064. What are you doing with the difference between 24 thou and 14 thou? What is that? You follow me? In other words, you're literally planting the 16,844, but you're also removing even more area of lawn. I mean, what is that, a mitigation? The removing of the lawn, 24,000? Is that in addition to the 16,000? I really had a hard time because it's not at all marked out there, and your schematics are pretty challenging.
Yes. So what I understand from the landscape architect numbers is that it's a net. So the lawn that it's going to be removed, it's using as a credit. So the overall, it's that you're going to have the 3-to-1 mitigation comes up to, when you multiply that number, the net by 3 to provide the 3-to-1, you come up with 14,000 needed.
Right, and that's
and
yeah.
And the same thing with the 2-to-1 for the riverfront area. So what's removing and what's proposed, it's a balance that we are providing the 3-to-1 on the delta between the two.
But okay, so there is literally going to be planting of 16,844. There's actual plantings, real little bushes or what have you, right?
It's a combination.
It's
a combination. So there is 300 plantings that are shrubs.
Right.
And she's putting the numbers like 45 AUs.
Right.
And the location of all of them, identifies in here. But there is also a mix of perennials,
right,
and a grass maze,
and that totals 16,000.
It's not lawn; it's a different type of, native grass that goes on the buffer.
It's mitigation. It's like a meadow, a wet meadow, or whatever it is, a meadow.
Exactly, and I think I have photos of it too. So this is how they're going to be looking like.
Right, but what is the 24? I guess I'm just wondering, what is this lawn removal of 24,355? That's an even bigger number than the 16,844. I was like, do you follow me? What are you doing it sounds like there's something in addition to the 16,844. Is that not true?
I honestly don't understand it that way, to be honest.
In other words, up above, it says lawn. You're going to be reducing 24,000 square feet of lawn. Right? What does it mean to remove lawn? I mean, does that mean
existing lawn is going to be removed and replaced with the plantings and grass mix? So it's going to be removed from, because that lawn, this property has lawn all the way basically to the limits of the bank. So that no longer is going to be there. It's going to be removed and replaced with mitigation plantings. That's what the calculations mean.
Right.
The delta, the difference between what's proposed within it and what's removed.
Typically, in our mitigation calculation, does not really go down to that disturbance zone and all that stuff. That's why it's kind of creating some confusions of understanding that piece. But I think with the mitigation planting that you will be providing, you know, for Ed to review and so forth, that will help in terms of understanding what that mitigation planting stuff is and where they are.
And obviously the pickleball court that is no longer proposed bring this number down a little bit more.
Right. So, right. So that gives you a chance to kind of updating the mitigation calculations with the revised plan. So, Angela.
Yes, thank you, Tom. I also, this was not marked. I walked it as well, and it was very hard to see what was going on. And I have a question on the east side. It was marked for a boardwalk going right out into the water, down into the marsh, into the water. I don't see that on the plan. And did I hear you wrong? Are we to expect another NOI for this property on April 1st? So I'm a little confused.
Yes, that is correct. So I'm only showing this for information purposes. But you do have an NOI already in file that it will be before you on the 1st of April.
And that one will have a
boardwalk. That will have exactly. That will have the dock proposal, and that was we did that following the recommendation for your agents.
Okay, I was just confused. Thank you. So there's more information coming. Thank you.
Yep.
For a different filing.
A different project.
As a separate applications.
Got it.
Any more questions from the commissioner?
Yes.
Who's this, Jeff?
Man, oh God, Tom, what
John?
Happened? Yeah.
Sorry.
We can hear you.
Oh, okay. I am still having trouble here. Just the point that Angela was making relative to that, Doc, Tom, that he's going to submit a revised plan anyways. I think that's where you were going with this. And then, of course, a continuance for a DEP number. But it should be clearly that doc should be removed from this drawing so that there is no confusion, that it's not being discussed, approved, or presented for a project on this evening's hearing. So if Jose, you're going to submit a revised plan, my recommendation is to take that off and it will avoid confusion.
Point well taken. We'll definitely do that.
Yeah. Any other questions from the commissioner? Channel 18, any public comment on this?
Yes, we do. I believe Attorney Ford is on representing the Tesconis, who are neighbors. Mr. Ford, if you're still here, you want to unmute?
I am here, and Jose has indicated to the commission that they are removing the pickleball court, and for that, my clients appreciate that and want to get that in the record. So thank you. We'll be sure to look at the revised plan to make sure they follow through with that. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well, Mr. Chairman.
Any other public comment, Channel 18?
I believe that's all we had on this item. Thank you.
Okay. Jose, if we do a revised plan and is April 1st enough time?
Yeah, it should be. But can we please just summarize what are the revisions? I know that I'm going to be removing the dock. I'm going to be adding some dimensions that you would like to see, some additional dimensions for the proposed outlines. And about the mitigation.
Removal of the pickleball court that we mentioned.
Yep, removal of the pickleball court.
Add some dimensions in some of the area, like the proposed addition, 233 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
If you can give me the dimension of that square. And the proposed patio area right next to the pool.
Okay, area.
About location of the mitigation, if you're going to be reducing the amount of mitigation.
Revise the mitigation calculations because you take off the pickleball court, and then we need to revise the planting plan because we have not seen that you just shared with us on the screen right now.
Yeah,
Ed has not received it.
Yeah, Ed has not seen this, so we need that.
Understood. Then how the board feels about everything else? Is the proposal reasonable?
Tom, are you prepared to make a motion on this then, to move it forward?
Well, I wasn't planning to because in the sense that with all this revised plan and Ed has to review the planting plan stuff. Yeah. It has to come back anyway. So why don't we just do a continuance to April 1st for this final approval?
Fine.
Revised plan.
Yeah, there is enough. I would agree with you.
You know. Jose, is April 1st enough time to submit this after the for the hearing?
Yeah, so since I'm gonna be on April 1st anyways for the proposed dock discussion, let's plan on trying to get everything submitted to you.
Okay.
So that's I would like that date, please.
And then you need to submit you have to sign off the continuance request you can get that from the office. So could I have a motion to continue this applications to April 1st?
So move.
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili.
Aye.
Hearn.
Aye.
Pashulik.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Sempu.
Aye.
Tagny, aye. That's unanimous, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your time. Appreciate it.
Yep. The next one is the amended order of conditions 160 Peppercoin LLC to amend existing order conditions to add installation of gravel driveway gate and pier, perimeter fencing and a shed and native planting at 172 Peppercoin Lane, contoured as shown on the Assessors Map 004 Parcel 013-001. Lawrence.
Hello again, Lauren Kernan with Lombardi Design, here on behalf of Craig and Joni Harrison. Okay, so this property is 172 Peppercorn Lane. There's an open order of conditions on it for here, let me share my screen. There's an open order of conditions to build a 5-bedroom house with a pool and a motor court and a septic system, and then a driveway going out to Vineyard Road. The amended order proposes to reduce the scope of work pretty significantly. The current owner does not have any desire to build a home on this site, so instead they are proposing to build a pavilion, like a 20-foot by 20-foot pavilion, more like an open air roof structure. There's a seeded meadow in here that was installed to stabilize the site that had been cleared for the house. And then they would still like to install the driveway as previously proposed. The only difference with that is that it's a tire track driveway instead of a gravel driveway, so it has a grass, middle to it instead of a full thickness, like a full width gravel driveway. And instead of dead ending at the previously proposed house site over here, it turns northward to connect through to the two properties above it. There are also 4 little turnouts along the length of it. They're all outside of that 100-foot buffer that's on the southeast corner of the lot. And a perimeter fence is proposed to run along this property line here, not go through the wetland resource area, obviously, and then continue on to along the Vineyard Road side to tie into the property above. And then the other change that was not on the previous order is that we're proposing to revegetate all of the remaining area that was cleared for the driveway. So we have proposed native planting plans to basically knit back together the woodland ecosystem that was there. I think that's it.
Thank you. Question from the commissioner. Bill.
I don't have a problem with the project. I was out there and I saw along the road, if you will, it says like edge of road or what have you. And then it says LOW, L period OW. What is LOW? Maybe Tom knows, but do you know? Anybody?
Limit of work.
Limit of work. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm good with it.
Angela?
Yeah, I was just curious, your definition of a pavilion, is this for picnickers or for them, like bands are going to play there? And what's the dimensions of it?
It's 20 feet by 20 feet. It's kind of like an open air roofed structure. So more like bird watching platform or space to get out of the rain or sit and contemplate life. I don't know, something.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question from the commissioner?
Chairman.
None?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Just checking aside, I'm good with all the planting that they were proposing. My only question had to do with the fence. I was relating back to the back in through the 50 and going back from the 100 down into the 50 or to the 50. You say something about it's going to be a split rail fence with mesh. Are you putting something? The mesh, is that like a hardware cloth? Is that what you're talking about, or?
Yeah, it's like like a welded wire mesh, exactly like a hardware cloth. It would be held up 6 inches from the ground, so small wildlife can get under.
Okay, I get a little nervous when I see that sort of thing, only because it can pose a hazard to birds, especially. But there's nothing to say you can't do it. I'm wondering why you were looking to do a mesh like that.
The owners have
going to keep something out or something in.
Something in. The owners have several dogs that they are hoping to encourage to stay on their property as opposed to get loose in the neighborhood. So that's the reason for the fence. Obviously, it's not a full perimeter fence because it doesn't go through the wetland zones, but
right,
it's the intention.
Okay.
Are you all set, Ed?
Yeah, I'm all set.
Okay. Any public comment on this one? Amended orders, public. No. Let me try this. Could I have a motion to approve this amended orders and with the condition on the annual report for 3 years?
So moved.
Anyone second?
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili.
Aye.
Hearn.
Aye.
Kashulik.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Shampoo.
Aye.
And Tagney. Aye. That's unanimous.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
We have two continuance. The first one is Bluefield LLC is to permit a proposed seasonal ramp and float at 571 Old Post Road, contour as shown on Assessors Map 054, parcel 018. And this is a continuance from February the 18th without testimonies. So the quorum is every commissioner tonight. John.
Good evening, John O'Day from Sullivan Engineering Consulting. I'm here this evening representing the applicant. Also with me is Attorney Lawler. I'm going to bring up my screen for you all. As you mentioned, this property is located at 571 Old Post Road in Katuitt. I have it highlighted here on the town map so that you can get an understanding of where we are. Our project as proposed, hopefully the screen switches for you. The site's developed with a single family dwelling. There's a stairway leading down the bank. There is an existing permitted out-haul post. We are seeking to remove that out-haul post and install a seasonal ramp and float system. This is a revised plan that was submitted with the revision date of March 2025. It was requested that we update the soundings from a prior plan that had been done some years ago, which we've done. The bottom has no sign that it's changed, but we have used a different title adjustment based on published information from the Buzzards Bay organization title datum website. We have also added to this plan, was not shown before, the out-haul posts. So as you can see, we are not extending out nearly as far as that. We were this evening before the Waterways Committee, and they had no objection to this. We've also showed the distances to the adjacent piers, and this line for sort of reference point is actually a line connecting those piers. So we're much inside of those, and showed the distance to the closest mooring. That out-haul post is about 130 feet. So our float will be about 150 feet away from that. Project, we believe, is consistent with the regulations. We're well within the length requirements, located near the center of the lot, etc. I think with that, we would be here to answer any questions that you may have.
And we also, if this is passed, we would also need to go through most likely the Zoning Board of Appeals. I'm not sure that's relevant to your particular task, but I think it's important for your information.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions? One thing I just want to mention, this area is rated 10 out of 10 for shellfish rating. And this is also a shellfish relay area. But it's outside of the no dock zone in Katuitt. I think, let me go through the commissioner and then I'm going to.
Actually, I think it's in that, and that's the relief we might need with respect to zoning board, Tom.
Okay. Angela?
Yeah, that was my concern, that this is a 10 out of 10 shellfish rating. And I feel like there's no way we can't impact the resource, and I feel like it can't be mitigated, so it needs to be avoided. So I'm not really comfortable with this at all.
Bill?
I'm kind of feeling my way along here. I haven't come across a ramp instead of a dock. I mean, we have been involved with docks, and we have a dock ordinance that says that if you have a shellfish rating of like 10 out of 10, then you have to have a 30-inch clearance below the motor. And yet it's not a dock, it's a ramp and float. And I don't know where we are relative to that. And perhaps my fellow commissioners with more experience might be able to enlighten me. I would think that there would be one question is, will there be boats tied up at the float? And if that were the case, it seems as if you would only have 8 to 14-inch depths there at low tide, and that's not the 30 inches. So help me with that.
The purpose of this dock, in large part, is that the owner of the property is one of them has some disability issues, and some other people involved in the property are getting older and generationally will be older. They have a mooring that's parked about 150 feet past the pull-out post. Outpost? I'm losing my words on that one. You can see the boat dock there. It's quite a distance away. And right as it's presently situated, there's tremendous difficulty trying to access any type of ability to access that area from the beach and rocks and stairwell. And the pullout, John, I'm blanking out of the words. The
Outhall.
Outhall. Thank you. The outhall. Sorry, I'm getting a senior moment. The outhall is a serious situation where it all is a pre-existing situation with boats being pulled back and forth. What this float system is a seasonal system. Part of the other portions of the system is the material used is this composite decking, which has large holes in it to let as much light through as possible. And it's intended to be as environmentally friendly as possible and allowing these folks to have the ability to utilize their boat. That's actually their particular boat in the photograph, which is closest to the shore. As you can see, it's a substantial distance away from shore, and having to manhandle a dinghy or so off the shoreline or whatever, and then having or on the outboard post is significant as compared to if it's tied up to a float. I don't believe there's no intention of having a motor on it. It's strictly to be able to easily row out there and have access to the vessel.
And if I could just add to that, it is our expectation that the commission would treat this float as it treated a float at any other structure that it sees, and be applying its regulations and conditions to it, so that this, as he's stating, is that this is intended to be a non-motorized. It is a place to have better access basically to the rowboat that they already have, and then maintain their boat at their mooring.
Or a non-motorized skiff. I think they have an old skiff possibly as well, but I mean, it's a rowboat. Yeah.
Because in this applications, as far as I understanding, this is a non-motorized pier and seasonal.
Correct. Seasonal non-motorized.
I didn't see that, and that's what was bothering me too. Yeah, it specified non-motorized.
Yes, John.
Okay, and no berthing of boats there. Then otherwise, maybe no motorized boats are going to be going in and out. Is that?
No. It's just, I mean, there will be berthing of a small skiff, but a non-motorized rowboat skiff.
Okay,
and that was indicated in the in our compliance with conservation regulations, letter M is where the commission gets into draft under boats, etc. And we indicated NA, this pier is for non-motorized vessels.
Thank you.
Right. Unmute yourself.
Oh, yeah. So I didn't hear my name that I could speak yet. Okay. Thank you. So making sure that I understand what's in front of us. We have a non-motorized only seasonal float that will clearly say no motorized craft are ever supposed to be approach or even sit to drop off people. My concern here, as Dr. Hearn mentioned, is you don't have the 30 inches here. So that means a motorboat can never, and it should be very clear to all who are in the area, a motorboat can never be brought to this float. Is that in the agreement that is being made by the applicant's agents?
Agreed.
Okay.
And I think we would expect the standard signage, which would have that clearly posted on the structure.
Okay. Second thing, again, which is it got me a little bit confused. This dock is in fact in the no new additional dock zoning area?
That's the relief I started the meeting
Right,
by indicating that
Okay, I
would.
want to make sure that's clear. And going back to when this was actually a zoned decision is it the early 2000s or maybe even earlier? Part of that was so we as a conservation commission would not have to be arguing stuff like this.
We're going to be seeking.
I can't remember any time in my 20 plus years, or at least as long as the zoning has been there in Katuitt, where we have actually had to consider within a yay or nay a dock within this no dock zoning area. Thank you for the time.
Can I jump in on that just briefly?
Sure.
And I mean this with the utmost respect. You know, I've been before you guys a bunch and thrown us around respect for you, but that's a zoning ordinance, and I think that's an issue that needs to be addressed by the zoning board respectfully. Now, obviously, it's important. I led with it. I didn't want to in any way try to conceal or hide anything, but I think that particular issue is a zoning ordinance, and I thought it was appropriate to make sure that before we went before the zoning boards, that we clarified that everything would be hopefully approved by conservation, and that we did everything in accordance with conservation. So, and I will say that, you know, there is one more step, and probably a more difficult, and I don't want to put words in my mouth because obviously you folks are going to give this a hard look, and I don't want to be presumptive at all, but the zoning board is the final gatekeeper on this project.
Thank you, Dave. Any more questions from the commissioner? If not, I'm going to the public. Channel 18, any public comment. I can see Amy here. Amy?
Hi, yeah, Shellfish Constable Amy Croto here. I apologize. I'm working off a new laptop and didn't realize it doesn't come with a webcam. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So obviously my supplementary comment letter, in addition to shellfish biologist Elizabeth Lewis's comments against this project, have largely to do with zoning ordinances. I will say this went before zoning in 2018, and at that time, Attorney Lawler argued that they had to appear before zoning because it was a zoning issue first and foremost before they go to the commission, and he's now sort of walking that back. It was denied at that time with commentary from the Shellfish Committee, from my department, from Conservation Department head at that time, Darcy Carley, and was ultimately taken to court, where eventually in 2023 it was closed. So I cannot support this. Call it a ramp, call it a float, call it a pier. It's still in an area that the community at large voted to protect. And I think violating the sanctity of that at this point would cause dangerous precedent for other projects of similar statute moving forward in recreational shellfish areas and designated shellfish relay areas.
Thank you, Amy. Channel 18, any other public comment on this one?
Yes, DJ Crook is also on. He's the chair of the Shellfish Committee. I wasn't sure if DJ wanted to make any comments tonight.
DJs?
Hi, yeah. Yeah, I was here along with Amy about this project. Yeah, I mean, under, you know, the town laws where, you know, within that area, we set in to protect shellfish habitat for rec purposes and relays, you know, allow one, who knows what is to come from it, you know, ramp, dock, whatever you want to call it. But, you know, this was in place for a reason. And, you know, as part of the Shellfish Committee, we got to protect what we do for a living. So that's all I have to comment at the time.
Thank you, DJs. Channel 18, any more public comment on this?
I believe that is it. Thank you.
John has his hand up.
Who?
John.
John.
Thank you, Bill. Yeah, I do. Clear. I don't understand, Attorney Lawler, why you are here before the Conservation Commission rather than going and dealing with the zoning issues, because to me, it's black and white that it's not allowed under current zoning laws, and you would need to go for a waiver or variance, whatever it's called there. And I wish you luck. I'd be shocked if they approve this, especially given the history of it. But that's not before us. It is just whether it meets our regulations or not from an environmental point of view. And Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't. Would the commission's approval of this or disapproval of this affect your chances before zoning?
John, the shellfish, the woman, I apologize, I forget her name. Amy is correct. There was a prior filing. It was a close vote, and there was an appeal. And I went back and forth with Attorney Houghton, back and forth with negotiations, and it was agreed that it was withdrawn without prejudice, I believe. And there was discussions. I even think I had discussions with the chairman of this board. I think that, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Tom, that we would eventually be coming back. And it was decided that it's a chicken and an egg approach. I mean, you need zoning board of approval and you need conservation approval. And it was decided at that time in conversations that if we did come back, we would go to conservation first. And that's what we've done. It was, the attorney handling it is retired, David Houghton, who represented the town for a long time in a very, professional and admirable way. So you're right that we do need zoning board approval, and we do need conservation approval. And I think that in order for, and I do think that there are, certainly issues that we will face before the ZBA. But I think that this board, I think the ZBA issue should be segregated. And I do think that based upon the, in the particular area, if you look at that entire zoning area, I think most of the properties already have a dock that are far more invasive than this particular dock. And it's not a dock, it's a floating system for a woman who needs access to her boat. It's seasonal, it's narrow. It's one of the shorter areas you can get, and it's non-motorized. I mean, if there's going to be anything that's benign, this is it. And
I think, David, when I mix you for the considerations of this commission are very, very different than the zoning issues, and we have no authority to grant it or deny it under zoning. Good luck to you going to them. To me, it does meet our regulations, but strictly with an understanding that if it's approved by this commission, that does not impact on your issues before zoning.
The only impact is that would be the final hurdle. And I'm not going to lie to you. I think a far larger hurdle than we also had to go to Waterways Commission. We went there.
Okay, thank you.
One thing, Dave, I want to correct, because I don't remember I was part of that negotiations. I think it before my time.
Okay, maybe it's another deal, Tom. I forget sometimes. See, everything's all blend together.
Well, we're getting old. We can't remember.
Tom, I'm not getting old. I am old.
I am getting old.
No, I'm not as old as Mr. Abedelia, though.
Oh, that hurts. That hurts.
Yes, thank you. I'll wait for a quiet.
Sorry.
I will acknowledge the professional opinion of our shellfish biologists within our town. And while the effect may or could arguably be de minimis, being a floating dock for non-motorized vessels only, it is not a zero impact. Again, I'm going to take the educated advice from our shellfish biologists, and I, for one, as a science-based person, cannot support a dock in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. So what I want to do though is I want to pull the commissioner on this one and then take it under the advisement, because whichever way that we want to do it, we should have some kind of a finding in whether there is any conditions that go along with that. So, let's pull the commissioner. If you think that this is a possible approval, or which way that you want to lean, just want to get indications.
Pete, look at the shellfish study, though, that was submitted with this thing.
It's 10 out of 10.
Yeah, that's agreed. But look at the shellfish study that John O'Day had done that was submitted with. That's what I'm looking at.
And I don't think that that's inconsistent with what the natural resources was. That, yes, there was shellfish out past our limit. I don't have their numbers in front of me. I could scroll to it. But we have certainly kept this inshore, and in terms of whatever the history had been with their last proposal, this has been significantly reduced in size. I think we've cut it in half from whatever David had brought before the zoning board in the past. And I would say that this resource, this wetland that we're talking about, is not different than any other pier area, and the shellfish is always a consideration, and a pier is never zero impact. And the commission has set up regulations to try to minimize those, and I think that we have met them with this structure.
To answer your question, Tom, I, like Peter, will not support this.
Bill?
To me, it's a tough call. There's part of me that is left thinking that I can't help but think that there's going to be motorized boat activity there. And I know that I can remember doing a dock. It was probably in a very low shellfish thing, and people wanted kayaks, and yeah, whatever. But here we have something in which DJ, the chairman of the Shellfish Committee, and Amy come along, and they go, no, and it's not a good idea. And I'm thinking there are effects, and I feel like we would be in effect prejudicing an appeal to the zoning group, and it doesn't feel right. I would have to join Pete and Angela with a no, but I do it. It's not like, oh yeah, for sure. It doesn't make me feel good. This is a tough one.
No, this is only a pooling, and then
but that's where I'm at right now. It's a tough one.
It is a tough one. But for myself, it's like, because of the shellfish rating, and it's a 10 out of 10, and it's a tough call, but I'm leaning that way. So, John?
Yeah, guys, we got regulations that we wrote that we have to follow. And you listen to Amy, and Amy was saying, because of the zoning thing, you got to respect that, and absolutely you do, and absolutely I'd be shocked if zoning does anything but turn this thing down, but that's not our issue. If it complies with our regulations, are we just going to throw them away and ignore them? I'm sorry.
No, John, but regulations can change and things are adjusted, so it's not just ignoring them. We're saying that we're taking this seriously.
I understand we're taking it seriously, Angela, but we've got a set of regulations.
And you can vote yes.
As John argues, if in fact he's in full compliance with those, then tell me why the basis for denying it. I don't understand. If it was a motorized craft, no question about it. And John said,
because we are supporting, John, the wildlife in the future. That if we keep doing this, eventually everybody would have a docks according to our regulation. But a 10 out of 10 draws the line for some of us. It's as simple as that. I don't want to debate with you.
Okay, fine. Fine.
Could I chime in, Tom, please?
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
To me, the issue is we have a 10 out of 10 with the opposition. but it's also a dock or float or what have you that's 8 to 14 inches. That's really shallow. And having a dinghy, I mean, it's like, well, I mean, our ordinance is basically geared towards docks and protecting shellfish from motorboats. And you throw in, well, it's just going to be dinghies. That's kind of like that's not even part of our ordinance. And so I have to kind of factor that in. Well, it's going to be really shallow, but it's a dinghy, and we don't even address that. So you know what I mean? It's not cut and dried. You assert, John, and I'm not trying to dump on you, well, it's the regs, but it's like really in a kind of a weird place with a dinghy in 8 to 14 inches of water.
I'd like to add one thing here as well. Have we, with our signs on docks, no motorized craft allowed on an existing dock, have we ever demanded a dock be removed because there was an occasion of a motorboat coming to that dock?
And the answer is no, but we have had a number of enforcement orders where the harbor master sees it and has reported it to the enforcement officer in the conservation division, and we have issued enforcement orders.
And the dock still remains there. The dock still remains there.
I don't think we have ever required pulling a dock, but we do follow those enforcement orders. And do we have a right, if there's a repeat offense of that? Absolutely.
But we've never done it, John.
To my knowledge,
and that's my concern. I won't argue with you either.
Okay, to my knowledge, it's never been brought back before us.
Right. We just write the enforcement and don't think that we ever remove any dock because of that violations. Jeff.
Yeah, it is a tough one. Very, very tough. And I'm not certain that conservation is the first go around here. And I know there's the law of this, that, and so on. But as John said, this probably isn't going to get through ZBA. So I'm not certain, how important this is, at this point right now. So I would, if a gun was put to me, I would go with the majority on this right now.
But the thing though is we have to separate out from the zoning wise. We just have to look at our regulations because we have to write the finding based on our regulations, whether we approve it or not, because that's the basis that we have to justify ourselves, not because of the zoning, because that's a different issues that the applicant has to deal with. So with that, let me take it under the advisement. We'll come back on the April the 1st for the finding for this.
Will there be any more discussion April the 1st?
No, we're just going to do the finding and stuff like that. Basically, I would just take a motions to take this application under the advisement and come back on the April the 1st to review the finding and the final vote on that.
Yeah, David, excuse me, my understanding is if the motion is taken under advisement, then the hearing is closed. No further information from any source can be submitted after this vote. If it's taken under advisement, it's closed. And only the commission can discuss it at the next hearing. Nothing can be submitted after tonight.
Okay, and I know it's late, but if I could have 1 minute, Tom, I'm not sure if that's appropriate.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say that when this came before us, that this board issues regulations, and that regulations are the rules, and we fall within those. And if the board decides they want to change and make different regulations that are more stringent, that's within their right, and obviously that's the situation. But what we've done is we've taken your rules and we've applied them to this particular project, and we fall within the rules. And I think that since we fall within the rules, we've gone non-motorized, we've done everything we can to ensure that this woman has access because of her disabilities to her own boat, that it's appropriate for this board to follow its own rules. And I understand, and there is, and I don't know who said it, but there is no dock that has zero impact on anything. And this is a float in a floating situation in an effort to fall within your rules. And it was designed for that particular purpose, and everything that was done falls within your own regulations. So you submit to the people, if you do this, then this is okay. And I suggest to you that, especially since the shellfish study finds the shellfish outside the dock area, and the last thing I want to say is that, respectfully, to assume that my clients are going to break the law and that they're going to bring a boat in that's motorized is it's an assumption that they're going to violate the rules and regulations. They're fine people. They're law-abiding people. They're out here just to get access on a seasonal basis to their boat. And I think that to say, okay, here, these are the restrictions. Oh, but we know you're going to break them, so we're not going to give them to you. I don't think that that's appropriate of this board to do that, or any board. I've heard it before, and I understand that some people do break the rules. But to suggest and assume that my clients are going to break the law, I don't think is appropriate. And I mean that with all due respect. Thank you.
Tom, can I answer that? Because we didn't assume they were going to break the law. We were giving an example. Another example, as you all said, you're getting older, is they also eventually will pass on and other people will own this property. We were giving examples. We were not attacking your clients. Please be clear on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Could I have a motion to take this matter under the advisement and come back on the April the 1st for the finding and the final vote?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Tangney, aye. Sampu,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Kashulik,
Aye.
Hearn,
Aye.
Abadili.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Dave.
Nice night. I know you're all volunteers. It's late.
John O'Day and I have been from this afternoon, like 4 o'clock to now.
It's been a long afternoon.
I think he's going to get a paycheck from the town.
The last continuance is 135 Putnam LLC for restoration and construction of a vinyl bulkhead to stabilize the failing coastal bank and replacement of the bank access there at 135 Putnam Avenue, contoured as shown on Assessors Map 036, parcel 040-001. This is a continuance from March the 11th without testimony, and every commissioner is on the quorum tonight. John?
Good evening. John O'Day from Sullivan Engineering Consulting. Also here still is Katrine Higgins from Wilkinson Ecological. We're here representing this project for 135 Putnam Avenue. We appreciated you allowing us to request a continuance, and we hope it gave us an opportunity to supply the commission with some additional information to help them understand the project a little bit better. I know that it gave us all some opportunities to revisit the site, and some of us were able to visit it together to really get an understanding of what we're dealing with here. As I said, the property is located at 135 Putnam Avenue. We have an existing coastal bank. We have land under ocean, coastal beach, a coastal bank with land subject to coastal storm flowage. This is one of the supplemental pieces of information that I provided to you all, where we've tried to generally highlight just how bad the condition is of this bank. It has had significant failures. This sort of lower portion is areas that have moved substantially 4 or 5 feet. And, as a result of that bottom moving out, we've even seen that the top of this bank, we're starting to see a secondary failure line. And as I mentioned, we had a chance to visit the site with some of you all. But for those who weren't able to make that, or weren't able to make the site at all, we did provide some photos. I don't think they do it the justice that standing there does. But again, on these photos, we've tried to highlight for you as best we can just how much of this bank is in failure. There's a photo of the stairs, which I think is very sort of telling of how much this is changing and how fast. These stairs are relatively new, and you can see on the stair line kind of where the land had been not that long ago and how much has washed out of the bottom of this bank. So we really are kind of at a critical point with this bank, and we feel that we're here before you with a very important project in terms of protecting this bank and preventing it from further failure and ending up on the beach and in the harbor. So I'll switch to the plan that doesn't have highlighting on it, and we'll get back to some of that other supplemental information. But the project as proposed is to construct a vinyl bulkhead along the bottom of this bank. It's to be of a height of about 4 feet, which we think would give good protection to the bottom of the bank. It's certainly, we're not proposing to build this up to the 100-year storm flood elevation or anything. There will be events that go over it, significant storms. As a secondary line of defense, we do have a fiber roll array kind of protecting the next feet up of the bank from any washover events. The current slope of that bank was very steep, 1-to-1, at least 45 degrees. As it's eroded and broken away, there are areas of it which are even steeper. We think that that's a slope that would be very difficult to stabilize, and given how much of it has already moved, it would be a nearly impossible feat, we think, to fully kind of restabilize that bluff. So we are proposing to regrade that slope. The construction access would be from the land. Part of that supplemental information that I gave is a I think very detailed work protocol as to who all the people are that would be working on this and what their roles would be, what they would do, and things that they would be, doing and responsible for to make sure that there isn't any impacts during construction, result of a rainstorm or something like that. It's I think that the bank is already in a position that's very threatening in any sort of event, but things that can be done even in the process of this repair that can alleviate any of those potential concerns. So the plan would be to soften the slope of this embankment from that 1-to-1 plus down to 2-to-1. And if I pan over, the bulkhead detail is very typical. I think the commission has seen these permitted and installed many times. But again, would be softening this bank to get it to a point that it's stable and it's at a slope that can be well restored, well stabilized with vegetation. I don't have the Wilkinson plan. I can tag out of this and bring that up momentarily as well. So at the end, I think that we're also, as we soften that slope, we're kind of pulling the top of the bluff further inland. So it ends up about 20 feet further inland. And then on top of that, we have suggested, so we will be fully reestablishing the vegetation on the bank. We'll be fully reestablishing the sloped area. And we've also proposed about an additional 20 feet that we think, it would behoove us all to get that installed sooner than later. We hope that perhaps it could be used as mitigation for whatever projects may move forward in that land, if they're even within conservation's jurisdiction. We have not touched upon looking at any of the land development plans at this point. The bank is really in such a condition that it is the sole priority right now. Besides the repairing, restoring the bank, would really just be replacing the stairway that goes down it right now. I think that, so as I mentioned, we provided a detailed work protocol. Won't go through every detail of it, considering the time, but we also provided some photographs from what will be the construction team, just kind of showing the commission that these sort of construction accesses to the shoreline from the land do happen, and they get meticulously pulled apart and meticulously put back together when it's all done. This was a boathouse foundation project that Beacon had worked on in Chatham, and you can see their sort of access way down the embankment to get there. They've also, over the years, done a number of projects on Seaview Ave where there is no ocean access. They are coming through the land. They are creating themselves access ways that are at a reasonable enough slope to traverse to get down, and then they're working their way back out and restoring those areas when they're done. This was a bulkhead. It was on a pond, but again, there was no other means of access. Wilkinson also provided some photos of a project that they had, I believe was also in Dennis, Chatham, I should say. And, the photos of that, I think, are pretty similar to our condition, where there was some significant breaks in it. And it was regraded to get it to a stable position, including kind of bringing the top of it back. And I think kind of maybe the most access down it. And we had them add some dates to these, but just sort of as an example, if this project were to be approved, hopefully, and move forward as quickly as we possibly can, we'd be hoping that our banking would look something like this in, say, 2 months, but towards the end of spring, and again like this. And then they provided some dates of, this is what that project had looked like just starting into one season. By June, they were already seeing, some significant growth coming in. By the end of summer, it was fully covered again. These were just, again, some more before and befores just to show kind of how it was a similar condition. And that work is done along these methods on these kind of projects. We had provided kind of a construction access diagram to give an understanding of things that would be done to minimize any potential outfalls and storm events, et cetera, erosion. Again, I don't think anything can be worse than we're experiencing right now, but certainly trying to even improve on that with some straw wattles, creating a berm so there's no runoff coming over the bank as we're moving forward. So I think that's sort of a brief summary of the project. We'll be happy to answer any questions. I'll switch out of this and I'm sorry I didn't bring up Wilkinson's plan, but I will work to do that in case there's any questions on that end of it. Kirchner will be here to help answer those.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Any questions from the commissioner? Angela.
I just want to thank you for all the time you put in making a rather large project very understandable, and I really appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's a worthwhile site to do the site visit, looking at the condition of the banking, and see how the project is necessary to repair the slope on that one. So, any other question from the commissioner? Seeing none. Channel 18, any public comment on this one?
Not on this item, thank you.
I don't want to belabor, but I do want to just remind that there was discussion in our NOI and on-site and in my brief presentation here about whether the commission would consider some of this preemptive buffer restoration towards future projects.
Okay. Could I have a motions to approve this projects as submitted? And if there's any change in terms of the Wilkinsons and I think the Beacon Marine is the other contractor.
That's correct. They will be constructing the bulkhead.
Yeah, then you should send us the written notification to the staff for approval towards the change.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I have. Anyone?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili.
Aye.
Hearn.
Aye.
Kashulik.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Sampu.
Aye.
And Tagny. Aye. That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
We have 2 EC certificates and 1 denial, so I have to break it up into 2. Could I have a motions to approve Christian Camp Meeting Associations SC3-6050, Gregory J. and Julian P. Pinto, trustee SC3-5870.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili.
Aye.
Hearn.
Aye.
Kashulik.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Sampu.
Aye.
And Tagny. Aye. That's unanimous.
And we have 1 denial on the certificate of compliance, and that is Daniel Bear, SE3-5860. Could I have a motion to deny this COC request?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili.
Aye.
Hearn.
Aye.
Kashulik.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Sampu.
Aye.
And Tagny. Aye. That as well as unanimous.
We have 2 sets of minutes, March the 4th and March the 11th.
I make a motion to accept the minutes.
For both minutes, right?
March the 4th and March 11th, correct.
Anyone second? Roll call.
Tagny. Aye. Sampu.
Aye.
Lee.
I for 4, and I was abstained from the 11th because I was not there.
Okay. Kashulik.
Aye.
Hearn.
Aye.
And Abadili.
Aye.
The minutes are accepted.
Our next hearing is April the 1st at 6:30. And if everything goes well, that will be a Zoom. But once we know it in the next couple of days how it goes, we will let you guys know. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Tagny. Aye. Sampu.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Kashulik.
Aye.
Hearn.
Aye.
Abadili.
Aye.
That's unanimous. It's 10:05. We're adjourned.
Thank you.